Alex Jones, and I'm here to tell you folks, the world has fallen. The fascist globalist overlords, they're implementing the Great Reset. You don't believe me? I've seen the tapes. Watch it, folks. Watch as these pot-bellied Zoomer goblins work with the Illuminati to pit us against each other. I promise I'd be a good boy.
Ugh, I'm a good boy.
There's only one cure, folks, and that's liberty. And there's no better channel to find freedom than Fabian Liberty. Anarchy is order. Government is civil war.
You're offensive. Police lives matter?
We're just trying to do school.
What?
You guys have the same sticker as the other.
But this is our space. You're making the space uncomfortable. But you're white.
You're fucking a white male!
What is one way you combat racism? I don't root for white people on the sidewalk.
Stop you! Stop you!
They want your wallets, they want your guns, they want the wieners off your sons. Democrats.
Oh, we should film
So let's say, for the sake of argument, that all of the water levels around the world rise by let's say 5 feet. You think that people aren't going to just sell their homes and move?
Just one small problem. Sell their houses to who, Ben? Fucking Aquaman! Vaccine!
Children, they're spreading COVID throughout the population at higher numbers. And people are not entitled to turn themselves into deadly biological weapons by spraying disease-laden aerosols wherever they choose, randomly killing innocent people. This is not freedom, this is homicide, and willful ignorance is no excuse.
What the fuck?
Highest margin of victory yet. It's really impressive. Though, I'm starting to think he might have had help from the Russians.
Look at me, I'm a gay frog. I'm so cool, I'm so neat. I'll never have children and I'm sterilized. But the media says I'm totally cool. I'm a gay frog, I'm a gay fish. It's so good, and I think my daddy actually is.
I'm back. Sorry. I had to use the restroom last minute. Let me get some music going, boys. I don't know that I'm actually excited to do this debate. Normally I'm pretty excited for debates. I'm like, it's not like I'm worried about losing. I don't really give a fuck. Most of these things are based off of like biased judges and even more biased audiences. So like that's like less of a concern to me. I think it's just like the topic of interventionism and isolationism is so complex that it's almost like where the fuck do you even start? Like there are just so many factors. And also I have a lot of emotional ties to the concept of war as a vet, you know, like I'm not a combat vet or anything, but with my friends and family and a lot of other things, like sometimes I don't want to say I see red, but like I have a hard time talking about it in like an objective framework and like being chill about it. It's like hearing somebody being like, hey, we should just fight another one of Israel's wars. We should fight another war to make black and vetch and the banks rich. That'll be cool. It's like, actually, I think you should go start a shotgun and fucking, and so that the last thing that goes through your mind won't be that thought, but will be some lead. Like, I have a hard time not being like, fuck all of these people. Would I denounce the Talmud? Yeah, of course I would. I'm an atheist. I think we have to get rid of Christianity, Islam, Zoroastrianism, Judaism. I don't think the Talmud or is any worse than the rest of them. Oh, but the Talmud says that like you can have sex with like a 3-year-old girl and they're still a virgin. It's like, yeah, it's some old weird ancient shit to protect their virtue. Oh, but the Talmud says you can kill these people. Yeah, fucking, I don't know, read your Quran, man. Army ain't ready to be Marine yet. That's funny. I wasn't smart enough for the Air Force, I guess, but I certainly wasn't retarded enough for the Marines. Yeah, I mean, like, I think there's some fucked up shit in all ancient holy literature. I don't understand why people want me to hate one type over the other. Be like, but look at these details, and it's like, okay. I mean, I would say that out of the three, major monotheistic religions, obviously Christianity is the best one. I don't read right to left. What? Because that one type dominated us the most? Are we talking about like Christianity? No, I mean, I think Christianity is better. It just still has problems. Like Islam is definitely the worst of the three. And Islam, has like two special problems with it, right? Islam states that there cannot be any holy, what was my ASVAB? I mean, I was joking. I got a perfect score on my ASVAB, and I don't remember what my GT score was, but it wasn't a perfect 140, but it was like a 131, 132. Well, I mean, apostasy is obviously a problem under Islam. Like, I mean, there's a lot of problems under Islam, but the main thing is that, 99 is a perfect score. And then there's the GT score. I mean, you asked. Like, you can't do better than a 99. Like, you think this is a known? Like, troll better. Oh my God, thank you, Rudy. Thank you so much. I got distracted. Great way to start the stream. Remember, guys, if you send super chats during the debate, if I get a chance to during the debate, I will definitely answer them, but I will 100% answer them after the debate. But like the problem with Islam is that it claims that there can be no holy scripture, there can be no prophets after Allah, right? After Muhammad, right? And so like that's a huge fucking problem. And the other major problem is that it is a religious doctrine that is also a governmental call to action, right? Like it gives a set of laws for all people to live under, and that and like ways in which this legal system ought be. And I think those are like uniquely problematic in terms of religions. Because like Christianity, is, render unto Caesar what is Caesar, render under God what is God's kind of thing, right? Even though that's kind of like a cheeky anarchist thing, not really what other people think. But it allows, Christianity is allowable to live within the governmental system, of other people and to preach, through action and through peace. And Judaism, for the most part, is like that as well, but Christianity is certainly better about it. How many comments would boost your stream as much as minimum? The problem with that is that nobody actually knows those numbers exactly. Because if you knew those numbers, you'd know the algorithm, and then people would game the algorithm. I'm still going to practice my Norse heathenism. I mean, if you want to be connected to your ancestors or some shit, man, like I think it's kind of silly, but I'm not. So long as you're not doing shrooms and going to be, to go be a berserker somewhere, like I guess you're chill. Like you start doing shrooms and chopping people up, and like I don't know. Unless you do that in like Rotherham. If you do that in Rotherham, like I think your religion is A-okay. If you grab some shrooms and some axes and just start chopping up fucking Muslim gang rapists, you know what I mean? Like, kudos to you, sir. I'm just doing the shrooms. Yeah, the berserker thing was always wild to me. I was like, dude, how do you do shrooms and not just like kick back and fucking like chill out? I don't know who's judging the debate. I know the moderator is probably Gibbs or somebody that he picked, but like he keeps the actual content of how the brackets are done close to the chest. So like we didn't know until the night of, when we did the first bracket, that like we were going to be the judges for the other people. Rate Gibbs as a moderator. I think conservatives make better moderators just in general. I think both Gibbs and Andrew are really good moderators. I think Andrew is a better moderator than he is a debater. And I think the same thing of Gibbs as well, actually, now that I think about it. I just think in general that conservatives tend to be more, I think conservatives like order. Like that's what makes you a conservative. Is it like a personality kind of like personality type that desires order? And so I think they're kind of like I don't want to say predetermined, but they're just more likely to be, I can't think of the right word off the top of my head for whatever reason, but like from a personality perspective, they're just more likely to desire that things go on track and that those things stay on predestined. Yeah, but predestined isn't quite the right thing. It's like they have a predilection. There's a word I'm looking for right there, and I can't fucking find it, and it's bothering me. But I'm just gonna move past it. So they're more likely to be like, oh, let me make sure that this gets back on track, that this stays on the topic, or that like points of confusion that are just going in circles, they want to fix that. Whereas I think the left is proclivity. Thank you. That's what the word I was stuck on pre instead of pro. Right, they have a proclivity towards order, towards like ensuring that things run smoothly in that direction, and so I think they tend to be better at like managing or the herding of cats that can be like being a debate moderator. Oh yeah, Mad Gentleman would know, I guess. Yeah, give me more likes. Someone unliked. Like the likes dropped down to 8. Which one of you fuckers took away your like? Predisposed would have worked as well. Yeah. How dare you, sir? You liked by accident? Oh, fuck, man. That was God's will. Slope is dope. That's what that accident was. The Holy Spirit worked through you on your hand and your mouse, made you like this. Dose Vault, man. God wills it. Fucking hit that like button. Didn't you mention in the past Christianity can lead to socialist ideals? Yeah, absolutely. Any philosophy that is predicated, right, on a concept of sacrifice, and a concept of altruism as a good, is going to plant the seeds for socialism in the long run, right? Like it doesn't, like obviously Christianity has a lot of guardrails on that, and so it doesn't become like the full-blown socialism unless that person leaves Christianity. But nevertheless, if you teach at a deep philosophical level that it is right for man to give up sacrifice, for others, and that you need to be your brother's keeper, then it's going to tend towards some form of socialism. I mean, just read Judges, and I don't mean Judges 1 and 2. I mean like all of the collective judges, all of those prophets, right? And like look at Amos, for example, right? I mean, Amos is mad at the Jews for not being socialist enough. Like that's basically what he is. You're not taking care of the widows. You're not taking care of the poor and the hungry. You let poor people be poor when you should be like giving them your food, etc. Now, as with all of them, he's really fucking mad that they're like having sex parties and that their sacrifices aren't good enough, because old God was fucking really didn't like it if you worshiped some fucking, some agricultural sex god instead of him. Didn't like people having orgies at the ball parties. And I don't mean ball as in BALL, right? But yeah, I mean like he's a jealous God. But I mean those other things there are like really kind of pushing that. What's the least socialist religion? Absolutely Christianity, right? Like Judaism is absolutely more socialist, and Islam is more socialist than Judaism. If you look at socialism as kind of like anytime the state intervenes in the market, as a means of fixing or correcting market failures, because it's just an authoritarian religion with some socialist ideals. The prophets were all incels in denial. Well, slope is dope. You're on a great start to becoming a prophet. If objectivism was a religion, it would definitely be the least socialist religion. Man, my comments keep getting drowned out. I don't know what to tell you. If I get a lot of people commenting, I don't read every single comment. I read every single super chat. I don't read every single comment. I just kind of just go off of the vibe of what's in chat. Like I wish to one day be as good as Asmongold is at reading chat, because that shit is always wild. I'll see him like have like 1,000 comments pop up, and he'll just like boop boop boop. I know he has people working on him and bringing him comments and stuff, and but he's so good at like figuring out what most of chat is talking about at a glance. I mean, if you comment like 10 times the same thing 10 times, like I'll fucking, you need to be spamming at that point. Okay, I see where I'm looking up. You said Islam is existing just fine within a government system in Turkey. Turkey's got a lot of problems, but yeah, sure. I mean, Turkey's fairly multicultural, but it's got a lot of fucking problems. But also, Turkey is a bit of a puppet state to Western interests in its attempt to get into the EU. So it's really just a matter of lacking power. Turkey has power within its own region, but it lacks power in terms of what its goals are, and its goals are to get into the EU and kind of become another like European nation. And we send billions of dollars in foreign aid to Turkey, not in direct foreign aid, but in giving them weapons to then sell to terrorists, so that we can maintain the destructive aspects of the Middle East that we continue to exacerbate. So Turkey is kind of a client state in that regard. And then occasionally they throw a bunch of Muslim refugees when they get too many Muslims on like the border in Greece and shit. So, I mean, I don't know what you mean by working fine. If you mean that like the Muslims haven't like fucking had an intifada and like killed all the Christians and Jews there in a little while, like, yeah, sure. Okay, but have you seen how disgusting Asmongold is? I said I admire this thing he does. I didn't say I want roaches crawling on me. Would you still go to a church as an atheist as a means of community building and spreading freedom ideas? I don't know how effective or good it is to subvert churches. I don't like that. I think you should let churches be in that regard. Like if you want to community build and you want to go to a church, like a local church that's a good church, like you should. I don't know if I like the concept of going in to like spread our philosophy that is in sometimes antagonistic to those structures. I feel like that's probably going to cause more problems than it solves for you and your community. Yeah, without a doubt, Crowd. I mean, it's not full-blown socialist or anything. I'm just saying that it has some philosophical axioms in it that lead one towards the same kind of place, right? In a ways helps justify socialism. I will say one thing about this DCS. I'm in the debate championship Gibbs group chat. All of these streamers are fucking so chatty on Discord. Like every time I go to check my Discord, I'll see it and there'll be like 100+ fucking messages in that group chat. I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I'm probably missing all kinds of vital information about these debates because I'm just not reading all that shit. Are there denominations of churches? Yeah. Eastern Orthodox is probably as they get more conservative, they get to be more pro-capitalist and more freedom orientated, right? So, you're going to find places like Eastern Orthodox that are like that. But the problem is that it's still there, so you might get a little fashy from time to time. They're having a good time. Like, I'm not mad at them. I'm just like, I hope I'm not missing anything important because I'm not reading all that. Expose the Discord chat or no balls? I tell people all the time, your communications with me are not private. Unless you ask me to keep them private, like, they're not private. So if you say some wild shit, like, I'm just gonna fucking put it out there. Like, if you DM me and, like, you say, like, oh, like... like I am under no fucking obligation to keep your secrets just because you DM'd them to me. But if you say, hey man, can I tell you something and can you keep a secret? Then like, yeah, if I agree to keep that secret, then I'll keep that fucking secret. Unless it's like, unless it's like some like directly evil shit. Like, can you keep a secret? I've been fucking my 13-year-old cousin. I'm gonna be like, yo, not keeping that secret. I don't give a fuck about those secrets. My word goes away the moment you start aggressing upon somebody else. But if you DM me and you're like, hey, can you keep a secret? And I'm like, yes, I will keep your secret. And you're like, dude, I just really, 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 really love fucking myself with bananas. I'm going to be like, all right, well, our relationship is over, but I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm going to be like, that was wild. Was the drink at Jonestown an example of intersectional causes being nonsensical? What? Rip Amazing Atheist? What happened to Amazing Atheist? Did he, is the stream an hour early? No. I had a bunch of other shit to do today. I had to go to like the rental office. I had to get some food. I had to prep for the debate. What happened to Amazing Atheist? Did he finally like die or something? Oh, are you talking about like his, it's like his like small penis porn or something? I don't fucking remember. I remember he had some crazy shit where like he like leaked or someone else leaked his like shit. I liked Amazing Atheist when he first came out, but that dude is so cringe and like is still super cringe. Yeah, that's true. If you want to know more about serial killer stuff, join the Discord and DM Mark. Mark will happily, if Mark doesn't know the answer, he will find you the answer. If you have an interesting question about cults or serial killers, my DMs are closed. Well, then add him in the Discord, whatever. Yeah, like Pain Olympics type shit. I like vaguely remember. I just don't remember the exact details because I just don't care to know. Oh, let me cut this on live chat. I just realized it was on top chat. So that might also be part of your problem, Wrestling, is I had it on top chat instead of live chat. Sometimes if you use like weird naughty words or you're on YouTube's naughty list, it won't come through in the live chat. Unless you're a cute Latina or Asian chick. I mean, Latinas that are cute are part Native American, and Native Americans are basically just Asians. You know what I mean? Like, if you look at pictures of Native Americans, like full-blooded Native Americans, you're like, oh, wow, darker Asians. Like, there's not a lot of difference between, like, you know, a Filipino and a Latina, and you're like, oh, because it's Asian mixed with some Spaniard. They're the same thing. You know what I'm just saying. I got the monolids. Yeah, they don't have like epicandal folds. Yeah, Asians are more related to Native Americans than they are Europeans. That's like the biggest thing supporting like the Bering Strait theory. Like that they cross over that way because it would make sense, and the lack of genetic diversity. I was in AIT with a Navajo girl, and she was very, quote, Oriental looking. So she looked like a rug with patterns. That's cool. She have a lot of tattoos. All right, I guess I ought to hop into this Discord. We're getting this debate started. Like, share, subscribe, join the Discord. If you want to see me be toxic, follow me on X. If you want to ensure that you get your messages read at some point, either after the stream or when I get an opportunity during the debate, and you go ahead and super chat me. You can join the channel for $3.99. You get some cool emotes. You see the laser hoppa and the helicopters and stuff. But there's no content that's members only. It's just other than some cool badges, some bragging rights, and some emotes. But nevertheless, it helps me out, and I appreciate you guys, especially considering that people keep fucking copywriting me. I got a copyright strike, I haven't got a copyright strike yet. We're going to see. I've appealed it, then they sent it back, and then I appealed it again. So I might get a copyright strike soon on that Carmageddon music video reaction. But I want them to sue me, right? Because I will become so famous if they sue me for that song specifically. The record label that dropped her because of the song, please sue me so that I can go on Twitter or X or whatever and be like, look how this record label is trying to silence YouTubers about this song. The Juicebergs will fucking love me at that point when I'm like, the Jews are trying to silence me. They'll love me if they sue me on that one. But all right, let me hop in this Discord. Let me switch this over. Oh, so many things.
Overloaded right now. They're just letting in large swaths of people, and they've run out of notices to appear, so they're doing notices to report. There's so many people here. Our immigration system's so overflowed, they're not even getting the chance to do the pre-screenings before they get released inside the fucking U.S. It's wild.
Hey, I'm streaming.
That's the jam. And
Yeah.
there's
No, it's
the
okay.
man.
We'll talk
What's
later.
good, Scott?
I'll call you tomorrow.
What's up, Scott? The
All
thing
right,
is, we have the infrastructure to do it the right way. We let in 1.2 million people a year the right way.
Sorry about that, chat. My sister called me. There's not a lot of people that I will answer the phone if I'm streaming, and my sister is one of them. Mostly because I'm turning her into a libertarian. It's part of the reason I will answer my sis. Oh, did you hear about Trump being sentenced to no punishment? I haven't seen the results, so like I don't get it. And then all the people mad at like Amy Coney Barrett, I saw some of it, but I haven't dug into it.
For the right reasons. Like, it just blows my mind that the Biden administration, like, this is their largest unforced error, I think, of their entire...
Oh, hello.
What's up?
Yo.
Talking about the goddamn border.
As you do.
Yeah. I just realized that I did the Asian stereotype thing.
You did.
I did.
won't judge you
All right,
for it.
Let me
though.
explain, okay? When I was in the Army, I was a 68 Whiskey, which is combat medic / healthcare specialist. And for whatever reason, the Army sends a lot of fucking 68 Whiskeys to Korea, and they all come back and like they have like for like a month or two, they have like a Korean accent. And it's very weird, right? Because it's like, because you're there, right? So you sort of adopt the, oh, okay. All right. Just trying to explain my racism.
It was working. I was buying it.
It's true though, right? And so for a while, everyone comes and and then it becomes like kind of a joke. So people are like, "Annyeonghaseyo," right? Like, and it's like weird. Can you see like white American soldiers just being like "annyeonghaseyo," right? And you're like, what is happening, right? And then so like it just kind of became like a colloquial kind of thing that I did with a lot of my army buddies. And then one day I walked into a ramen shop and it like triggered something in my brain and I went like, "Oh, hello!" And then like I was like, "Oh,
fuck!"
And like I just had to like walk out. I was just like, "Nope, I'm out."
Gonna slowly ease my way out this bitch.
Yeah. I was like, I totally didn't mean it that way. It's funny though. You have to hear the whole
What's
story.
good, Gibbs? How strong is your racism?
I'm really racist against anybody that's broke. That's so what kind of is that? Is that poorest? I hate poor people.
Be classist, but
Classist, yeah. But
I mean,
that's
is it
what I am.
classist though? Like classist isn't really there, right? Because like, what if a millionaire grows up and then like becomes poor, right? Because they're just shitty, right? Like, are you really like you couldn't really say that like someone who grew up a millionaire is like like of the
then
lower
he dropped
class.
out of his class and he no longer fits.
Nah,
you can hate on him now.
Sure, but like who he is as an identity and like how he grew up and like what circles he ran in, etc. would be
you know what
upper class.
Yeah, he probably identifies by our special snowflake pronouns as a failure. That's what he would identify as. So fuck that guy. Anyway, on that note, let's just get started. Everybody's here on time. Well, it's amazing. It's amazing. Last week, not on time. This week, everybody on time. It's I don't know what's happened. But on that note, hey everybody, welcome to the Debate Championship Series. We're at our first of our semifinal matchups. We got on the blue corner in the left, we got our average debate enjoyer, and then the right on the red corner, we got Fabian Liberty. It's going to be a good one. We also have two guest judges to help me decide who's going to win because I can't decide. But you, the chat, gets to decide here at the end. It's going to be exciting stuff. After we do the debate, I'm going to announce how the seasonal format's going to work and what it's modeled off of and explain all that good jazz. So we got a lot of exciting things to do. Let's just jump right into it. I'll give everybody an intro, and then I'll introduce the topics. Tell us who you are. We'll start with our wonderful judges. Levy.
What's good, y'all? Your boy Lethy Waterkai here to enjoy some amazing discourse and watch two intellectual giants slug it out for this evening.
Fantastic. I appreciate it. Sociologic.
I'm just here to see two idiots convince this idiot which idiot's correct.
That's the basis of everything, I think, Average debate enjoyer.
Hey, I'm one of the idiots, and I hope that I'm not as much of an idiot as the other idiot. Thanks.
Fantastic. It's Fabian Liberty.
Fabian Liberty. You can find me Fabian Liberty on YouTube primarily, streaming, and on X. Yeah, I am both an idiot and an intellectual genius. That is how the libertarian autism works.
Fantastic. I
Special brand.
Appreciate it. All right, let me just pull up my timer and my coin flip. Does anybody want to go first before I introduce the topic?
I didn't write an intro this time because I feel like it was too much last time. Right? It was a little heavy. So I took my notes, you know what I mean? So if you wrote one, you can go ahead and go first, right?
I did. I thought you were gonna. Fuck.
Yeah.
Well, no, I took notes, you know what I mean? I have bullet points or whatever, but I was like, it was a little too formal, I realized, for the setting.
Well, I feel like people have I feel like one half the bracket had a very different interaction than the other half the bracket, I'll be honest. So we'll see which strategy works here going forward. I'm pretty excited. So does that mean you want to go first, Tyler, here once after I introduce the topic?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Let me introduce the topic then. We're going to be doing what's best for America, interventionism, or isolationism. What's better? And I guess average debate enjoyer is going to start us off. As always, you got 5 to 7 to start. If I say something, try to shut up because I'll probably be doing whatever, housekeeping or something along those lines. And then we'll also have the judges ask, as always, and then we'll have a 3-minute closing. So there we go. Let's let you go. Start us off.
All right, so I'm not good at reading stuff off of paper, so I'm sorry if this gets a little boring, but the United States is the best nation on the face of the earth, and small L liberalistic principles have guided both parties into this proven conclusion.
This is the best system to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. I think both my opposition and I agree to this. I think we might disagree on tactics and views on how to get there, but at the end of the day, we both are kind of liberal, small L liberals at heart. I just think a libertarian's a little bit more of an extreme on some ends that I would concede on others. Generally, we're coming from a very similar place in terms of our values, I feel like. So that being said, I'm going to try my best not to attack him on anything besides those, which again, I'm saying we probably agree in a lot of ways. So let's get down to the actual disagreement here. I would argue that the best way to bring the world up to speed of America is to provide our economic structure, our economic ways, our government structure, our government ways, our cultural structure, our cultural ways to the rest of the world, pushing these on them in subtle, different, various forms. All of which don't have to be nation building. I know as soon as you say something like this, everyone's mind goes to Afghanistan, but a lot of these, most of these are going to be economic coercion that we do on these nations or economic help that we do for our allies. So there's going to be two metrics I want to judge by. The first one is probably the more important one of the two is it's going to be, is this better for the world, essentially? And that's kind of what we're going off of. But the second one will be, fuck, I lost it. So let's just go off the first one.
Rick Perry's here.
Yeah, Rick Perry. I
That's
have those a lot, man. I'm not even stoned. I really tried to stay sober today for this. So again, for our allies, this aid kind of comes in the form of aid, training of different economic sectors or even troops, visas to come to the U.S. and work, or like what we did with Mexico after the migrant protection protocols went away. The deal they offered Joe Biden was a bunch of visas and $20 billion, and they're going to patrol the southern border. So this is often used as a negotiating tactic for other nations to come in, learn our skill sets, see our companies, and go back to their nations and rebuild them, making them stronger allies. In terms of military, we do often protect the weak. We stand up for our allies in these other areas. And in cases like Ukraine, which we see right now, we had them dismantle their nukes in order for us to back them in this war, making the world safer as a whole. With adversarial nations, these sometimes come in the form of sanctions, demands to get loans approved, like with Ukraine, they were trying to get a loan approved. Joe Biden wanted Shokin gone, said, I won't approve your loan until this corrupt guy is out, and it was proven he was corrupt, even if Hunter Biden was a piece of shit. And I would say that military can't come off the table, but I am far from John Bolton or John McCain or anybody named John that's a neocon that is a war hawk. I'd say that combat has to be the last alternative. Personally, being more of a left-winger myself. That being said, interventionism only ends in combat. It's the barrel at the end of the gun if everything else fails. And there's a lot of things we do that. So anyways, the U.S. success rate. I'm sure my opponent and I will agree that a handful of modern examples on failed intervention at the military level. Libya comes to mind, Afghanistan, Iraq, certain things about them fail generally. And I'm not going to defend every single version of interventionism. I think sometimes when you just put the foot in the door or split the baby, it's not enough. We have to stay in these nations longer. So there's going to be a lot of things on that military level I probably concede because there's a lot of dumb people in politics. But at the same time, when we remove ourselves from the situation, it still happens. Look at what happened in Syria right now. We have the same people that were funding Hamas in Gaza were also backing the movement to overthrow Syria, and now they're in charge there, which would be Turkey and Qatar. So if we're not involved in this, it's still going to be going on, but our adversaries, the people that don't like us, that are aiding the adversaries that are also against us, are going to be gaining power as we sit back and do nothing. So to go into the real threat of us sitting back and doing nothing, if we let the rot fester too long, and we saw this in Europe, this is what you get. You get fucking Marxism. We have communism, we have nationalized syndicalism, which is classical fascism, we have Maoism, we have National Socialism. All of these things came at a point when the U.S. was isolationist, and we weren't looking over our shoulder, we weren't trying to help out our allies, and we got communism. If we go back into our turtle shell, we're going to get communism, or maybe even something worse. So, I would also say that the benefit of spreading capitalism worldwide has pretty much all but eliminated the lowest brackets of poverty around the world. Now, Scott can also claim some of this because a lot of it was done through philanthropy, and he's all about the charity thing. So this isn't my strongest point, but I would say that the way our system works, our tax code works, the way our government is structured, it incentivizes this sort of donation and philanthropy in a way that just no system at all may not. Not saying it wouldn't happen, but our system incentivizes it. Finally, the last point I have is I'm trying to show a good amount of respect. I hope that comes back. I've been in a lot of debates that break down into sophistry and character attacks, but most of them are with the Live and Learn podcast, and all those guys put me on block after I embarrassed them about the election. Hutch, I want my fucking money, you scumbag. I think it's kind of an uphill battle because interventionism is only attacked on a small handful of its largest failures, and really that's just forming a monolith about a larger ideology that works on so many other levels. Good luck, Scott, and eager to hear from you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Oh, also, one last housekeeping note, because, we're getting better at this, but it's still baby steps. Judges, you know what your judging criteria is? Whatever the fuck you want it to be. That's how this works. So, real simple rule. I just want to make sure that we clear that up for anybody at home or anybody who's confused. All right, same thing, baby. We got 5 to 7 minutes. We'll just call it 7 minutes from now on. I'll give you all countdowns at 2, 1, and 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Yeah. So first of all, I will say I will do my best to not get angry and get involved in character assassinations. I appreciate that that you have that commitment, but I make no promises. I make no promises because I'm a vet. My dad was a vet. His dad was a vet. His father was a vet, all the way up to General Winfield Scott. I've known a lot of people that, went to war. I didn't go to war myself. Luckily enough, I got my GI Bill, and, a lot of them came home broken, and some of them killed themselves. And so when I hear people simp for, the death of my friends, and I hear people simp for, wars that kill innocents and those horrors, sometimes I start seeing a little red. So I'll do my best, but, no promises. In terms of isolationism versus interventionism, it's a bit of a false debate because context is needed in almost every situation, right? I don't think anyone is purely isolationist. I don't think anyone is purely interventionalist. I mean, if you are purely interventionalist, then you mean to take over the entire world by any means necessary. If you're purely isolationist, then you're like against trade deals, I guess. Like you like much of what my opponent is going to talk about are things that we absolutely agree on, right? I think we agree on free trade agreements. I think we agree on, securing borders. I think we agree on, diplomatic attaches and, possible, transferring of prisoners, under certain situations. And I think we would even agree on certain things such as like sanctions, when they are appropriate. But we need to go into some of the nitty gritty of like how interventionism works historically as the United States and why it has been a failed philosophy over and over and over and over and over again. It's not a couple of recent modern examples, but from its very inception, it has made the world worse and it has made the world less safe. It has stolen property and value and progress and human lives and led to death and suffering and economic disaster throughout the entire world. So first of all, like what is interventionism is based upon a philosophical false premise, which is the collective security doctrine, right? It is this Westphalian Treaty concept and the United Nations in which upon it builds itself, this concept that every nation has these borders and that if another nation interrupts or interferes with these borders, that is somehow wrong and that is somehow evil. And it is a false analogy to a private property owner and police protecting private property. But none of these nation states in the world, with the exception of like a few anarchist communities, gained those borders peacefully. All of them stole that land. Everyone everywhere is on stolen land from people that were murdered. And so this concept that we draw this line in the sand at a historical date, and now we must commit resources and our wealth and the lives of our people to stop some other country from encroaching upon another country, is based upon, this status quo, this order maintenance. And is that order good? Well, in some instances it may be, and in other instances it isn't. But nevertheless, it's a status quo. It's an order-based system. So there are kind of two major types of interventionism. The first, which is I think the primary thing that, as my opponent brought up, is like these wars, these, bringing in troops, these, bombs, these situations. And these wars over and over and over again have been shown to protect corporations, protect corporate assets, and to protect the United States dollar. I mean, ever since 1957, when the Eisenhower Doctrine was established, we as America chose and said that we were going to be the police that made the Middle East a safer place. Well, it's been 70 years. How much progress have we fucking seen in the Middle East? We've seen a lot of death. We've seen a lot of trillions of dollars being spent, a lot of U.S. tax dollars, a lot of foreign aid, a lot of military troops, and every single time, with the exception of Operation Provide Comfort, which nobody even fucking knows about, where we moved the Kurds peacefully, it has ended and resulted in trillions in dollars in debt and failed nation states and maintain the power of evil regimes like Saudi Arabia. Somalia, destroyed. Iraq, destroyed. Afghanistan, destroyed. Libya, destroyed. Syria, destroyed. Iran, destroyed. Every single time we have gotten involved since 1957 in the establishment of the Eisenhower Doctrine, it has not been to the benefit of world peace, to stopping terrorism, to, maintaining anything other than the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency for OPEC and OPEC plus. That's all it is. It is an economic game that makes the corporations and the fucking billionaires richer and richer while stealing money from you and making the world a less safe place. I could go on and on and on again, but again, we have this concept, this false concept that we do this for safety and security. We do this to help the little guy. How many celebrities, how many people, I don't know if you're as old as I am as a millennial, but how many times did we cry out for help in Darfur and no one gave a fuck? And the reason no one gave a fuck is that it didn't make the corporations rich to go in. So they didn't do it. The second type is aid. And I think this is the more pernicious and the more evil form of interventionism. And it's the kind that people think is actually good. People think foreign aid means giving money to starving people. It doesn't. What foreign aid means is our Western imperialist system comes in, tries to influence democratic institutions such as universities, the media, etc., and funnels in billions of dollars so that we can try and force those countries' culture to change and hopefully lead to their own civil wars so that we have Western allies. We saw this with the Arab Spring, and we saw this in 2014 in Ukraine, where the CIA and the National Endowment for Democracy came in. This begins really with the Bretton Woods Initiative in 1944, which is again sold on this lie that we were going to keep the gold standard up. And 2 years later, Harry S. Truman puts Harry Dexter White, who was a known communist spy who funneled money away from the Chinese nationalists over to the Maoists to help China become a communist nation and fight the civil war that led to the bloodshed of millions, in charge of the International Monetary Fund, which is another system that we use to economically cripple weaker nations into debt so that they're forced to be a client state to us. This does not help us economically. It helps the rich. It doesn't help them. It doesn't help the American taxpayer. It doesn't help the little guy working at a factory. And again, we saw the Iran-Contra in the 80s. And so what was the response? What we did is we set up the National Endowment for Democracy Fund. We set up the Foreign Relations Council. We set up all of these systems that are supposedly pro-democracy, pro-good. And what they really are is a means of using CIA assets and your tax dollars to take away the democratic will of those people. It has cost us lives. It has destroyed us. I think it's evil.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you so much. All right. Stick 'em, boys.
Just want to address the first thing up front. I come from a military family. Dad, several uncles, cousins, uncle and aunt were in the Navy. So I understand where you're coming from there. I'm also an individualist and get that each of these people is a father, brother, mother, uncle. So as I said, I'm not John Bolton. I'm not going to throw their lives away willy-nilly. It's an absolute last resort. So I understand what's at risk when you put boots on the ground. And
I disagree with your assessment, but I understand empathetically, right? Like if you were saying that we ought be involved in nations, right? That we ought be involved in pressuring them, and then that blowback eventually leads to war, right? Then the precursor to that was an understanding that this might lead to the deaths of those people, that some of those people are going to go to war, come back broken, and then they're going to kill themselves. And you're okay with that because you believe that that possibility and those human lives and the human lives of people killed in those countries, that hopefully we can avoid that, but that might be the ultimate thing. But in the long run, it'll be better if we somehow utilize our pressures to force them or to encourage them towards, what it is that you believe is this American system.
Well,
I
that's the thing.
disagree. I think that there's actually a much better way to do this. And the much better way to do this is the way that Trump did it, right? Now, obviously not some of the crazy shit Trump's saying now, but when he had some of the best things that Trump did, right, under his first presidency, probably the best thing he ever did was have Jared Kushner negotiate peace deals that were based upon trade. Like that's how we bring our values, right? That's how we bring our system, is that we open up trade relations and we open up private businesses and we show them through our own progress and through trade that like there is a better way by being a city upon a hill.
Absolutely, 100% agree with that. But then as soon as pirates attack, those trade policies are toothless. The American hegemony that backs that free trade on the oceans is what keeps people out there trading. In
Do
a
you
sense,
consider that
we're-
interventionism? I'm just curious because I don't consider it interventionism. I believe that of the very limited duties and responsibilities that the United States government has protecting civilian assets and protecting American citizens, which would be trade routes from piracy or from foreign actions, is not a form of. I wouldn't consider that to be interventionist to stop pirates from destroying American citizens' property.
I'd say the isolationist way to do that is to break up the ocean into properties, and then everybody kind of just keeps the detail of their own.
That's not isolationism. That would be anarcho-capitalism, right?
Yeah,
We became private trade routes, like sure, but that's not isolationist,
okay,
right? But that's not the debate at hand.
Yeah. So okay, that's a fair point. That all being said, though, you were saying earlier that borders are somewhat determined by the current winners drawing an arbitrary line in the sand, to a degree. So we're spending all these time, money, and resources protecting these borders. But at the same time, my argument for interventionism is if somebody is being oppressed, if there's a group that's being attacked by a neighboring nation and they're being genocided, as we'll use today's modern word, then going in and protecting that weak person would be kind of what you're advocating for. And like, they're not inside of our borders, but this is a group of human beings, and we're here the strong with a surplus. We can go in and protect the weak. And we can do so with little to no death to U.S. casualties. Why
How'd
not?
that work out in Mogadishu? How'd that work out for Somalia and Mogadishu?
How'd
that work out when the UN tried to do it in Cambodia? Literally every time that we do this, the blowback is worse than the intervention. Look, if some private military, organization, some PMC, right, wants to, work on behalf of saving people that are being genocided, I'm all for it. Right. But what we're talking about when we're talking about interventionism is we're talking about mobilizing the United States military that is funded by our tax dollars, sending them overseas to fight and go up against other nation states in the hope that this doesn't lead to greater war by saying we're going to involve ourselves in a war.
So this is the most extreme, is the fighting. There's been conflicts recently where we go in, we don't actually participate in the fighting, and we isolate off the civilians. We get them out of the situation. We start to try to push them off of the neighboring nations as refugees, bring them into Europe, bring them into the United States. There's situations where we go in and intervene to protect the civilian populace from the war zone that we have little to nothing to do with.
What is one of those situations?
Syria.
Well, I gave one in my opening, Operation Provide Comfort.
Yeah. Sorry,
right, like I gave you that answer already, right? Like Operation Provide Comfort is probably the greatest argument that you have for U.S. interventionism. Now, to defang that argument that I gave you, maybe you can come up with a better one, right? Like, we kind of caused that, right? Like we've been a major source of the cause, and along with Israel in the Middle East since the Eisenhower Doctrine, right? Like it's not really like this great thing if we set up these systems and we create client states and we kind of like cause conflict throughout the world through our own pressures, and then we go in and swoop in and try and save these people.
I'd say Bashar al-Assad started that. I'd say the U.S. did very firm things, including Obama ruining his credibility on the world stage with his red line in Syria, leaving Russia to go in and handle that instead of taking care of it himself. We stepped back in Syria.
So you think
way.
Syria is an example of American success of interventionism?
No, I'm saying this.
Okay, what are you saying?
I'm saying that this is going to exist regardless. of American intervention. But if we are there, there's a much more positive impact we can make. There's been a long list of success stories: Japan, Germany, South Korea. You've probably heard all these before. This is kind of an old argument, but
Well, I don't think South Korea is really an example of a success story. I mean,
Yeah,
how
they
many
put out
American
Squid
lives
Game.
were lost?
Yeah,
How
but
many
I mean,
American
like,
lives were lost? How much
Oh,
money was
I
spent?
don't know offhand, but a lot. But I
How
mean,
many
the
how many
success
people how many
story is
people
where they
how
are
many
right
people
now.
froze to death in North Korea? You know what I mean? Like that's you can consider it a success because we can go, well, South Korea is a capitalist nation that shares Western values. And then what you then do is you go, well, we will assume that South Korea would be just like North Korea and all those people would be like North Koreans. But we don't know that because you have to compare it to another timeline. If we had not been involved in South Korea, it is almost inarguable that South Korea would not have fallen. Right. And that there would not be communist control of that region. But again, that North Korea, right, which would just be Korea now, right? How much success would they have gotten? What would we have no idea what the world would look like if all of that money and all of those American lives had stayed home and instead focused on the progress in America, creating new technologies, creating a stronger economy.
Hold on, before you go on, I want to ask a question because I think that this might help. And I hate to be this guy because this is something I really hate doing. But how are we defining success? I don't want the fucking dictionary definition.
I was saying,
don't give me that goddamn shit. Like, what are the metrics we're defining success?
I think we kind of silently agreed on success being that they're a capitalist country and they're successful right now.
Well, that doesn't seem like what Fabian's agreeing because he's arguing the loss of life.
Yeah. That's what he agreed that was my definition of success, and I agree that his assessment of that is correct.
Yeah, we're not going to agree on we have different values, so we're not going to
that's
agree
why
on the
I'm asking.
definition
But he
of success,
understands,
right?
He's picking up what I'm laying out.
Sure, that's why I'm asking. What is your definition of success then here? If it's not that, Fabian.
What is my definition of success?
Yeah, what would your
of not intervening is that I think the world would have been better if we didn't intervene in that regard, right? I think we would have had a stronger economy, would have had more jobs, would have had more innovation, we would have had a better moral standing. I think the entire kind of like Red Scare was fought in the worst way possible. And I understand why Americans were afraid. I understand why, after World War II, we saw communist nation after communist nation begin to be put forward. And I understand why that fear led to neoconservatism and led to, Vietnam War and, the war in, and in the earlier, period, war in South Korea. What I'm saying is that we would have been so much better off if instead we had just been trading with Europe. We had just been not sacrificing millions of lives, but instead focusing on creating cures for diseases, creating new technologies, creating new jobs, and watched socialist, authoritarian regimes crumble and fall and realize that if they want to be a part of our success, they have to play by our rules as opposed to attempting to impose them with loss of life and liberty in our nation states.
So we don't know what the world would look like, but we do know that Russia and China started their efforts. Lenin was starting his expansionist efforts into Ukraine long before any Red Scare stuff started in the United States. The expansionism of these communists, they outspent the United States. They had more men than the United States. In North Korea, for instance, China was backing North Korea. I don't know who backed who first, but before the war started, China was backing North Korea. So if there wasn't a force to back South Korea, it's arguable that North Korea would have taken the nation because they had the backing of our geopolitical rivals at the time. So after we
like I said, I agree that South Korea would have fallen to North Korea. Right? I agree that.
Sorry.
Right, but what I'm saying is that there is an assumption that the world is better because we won a war.
Yeah,
and I think that is a really bad assumption that most people make because you're comparing before and after. You're not comparing to what would the world be like if we hadn't been involved.
Yeah.
If we hadn't spent tens of millions of lives and billions of dollars on these wars, but instead focused on rebuilding Europe.
You're right. And
maybe we wouldn't have the
right.
communism and fascism, you know what I mean, to such a degree.
Yeah.
Maybe Europe would be in a much better place. Maybe like it's a butterfly effect, right? Like maybe if instead of doing that, we wouldn't have Rotherham, UK, and we wouldn't have like fucking Labour Party and halfway commie bullshit in the United Kingdom. If instead we had been focused on free trade and liberty and capitalism and that type of thing in Europe, and maybe Europe would be just like America in its values.
You are correct, but also maybe the domino effect that most military and strategic leaders thought was going to happen if these countries started falling to the communist pressure. Some of those would probably pick off some of our trade allies, hurting our free trade prospects. It would actually have probably put us in a worse place geopolitically in terms of trade if that domino effect had actually happened. So that was their fear. I think it has a lot of
the domino effect, right? Like, can we not admit, right? Like, I think everyone kind of realizes that the neocons were full of shit in this concept of like the domino effect. I mean, the idea that like, oh, one nation falls to communism, and so the next nation next to it is going to fall to communism because they see how great communism is. Except what I'm saying is that they would have seen how great the West is. We could have chosen allies.
Hold on, Tyler. I'm gonna let you respond, Tyler. I'm gonna let you respond to that, and then after Tyler responds, we're at the perfect halfway point for the judges to jump in. So Tyler, you respond, and then I'm gonna take a break.
I feel like we have barely been talking.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, that's when it's good shit. Time flies by. We're already like almost at 30 minutes in. So Tyler, you respond, and then we're gonna turn it over to the judges for a second.
Economic interventionism predates the United States. I just like to bring up one of the most, like the earliest times when the UK and the United States were doing this was when they abolished slavery. They used trade practices. They used the Treaty of Vanelli in 1915. They used the 1907 treaty, 1800s. These were all 1800s. 1834, they banned slavery outright. Then they used money or economic coercion to get it banned in all their proximity countries, all the countries they were doing trade with, and all their colonies. The United States joined suit 20 years later, and then they started using their economic might around the world to get most of the Western worlds to ban slavery. And what your counter argument tends to be here is like, we don't know a world that could have been ended soon as well. Yes, absolutely. It looks like the South in the United States probably was going to end slavery in the next couple of decades. But the fact that
hold on, this is my issue because it seems like you're blending what is my position with interventionism, and maybe we have a definition issue here with what is interventionism, right? But if I'm saying if you're doing trade with a nation, right, and you're protecting your citizens in their capacity to do trade, that's not interventionism, right? Like, you're not intervening in the country's politics. You're not intervening in how they rule themselves. The only thing you're doing is protecting your own citizens and protecting trade. And so if a nation refuses to do trade with a slave nation, that's not interventionism. That's just a nation saying that we're not going to protect our citizens if they want to go engage in trade with slavers. But you're mixing that with some of the horrors of colonialism and the way that the British Empire went in and murdered a whole bunch of people so that it could have essentially a new form of slavery and caste system in subjugating others. Like, I agree that ending slavery is a good outcome of much of British colonialism, but it came with a lot of bad shit too. And I think some of that was probably bad.
You're saying that's not interventionism, but in your introduction you said that when the United States gives foreign countries money, it comes with a set of conditions, or when we do tariffs.
No, that's not the same thing as trade.
Policy.
I'm talking
interventionism.
About, no, I'm saying when the board of the Foreign Relations Council and the Democracy for National Endowment Fund are both set up with predominantly ex-CIA, NSA directors and deputy directors, and they work as an NGO that's essentially an arm of the state to go in and try and influence the cultural institutions, the academic institutions, the media institutions, and buy off things in a nation in the hopes of having cultural revolutions like the fucking coup in Ukraine, or like the fucking Arab Spring, or like how you tried to push out Bolsonaro, and over again, that they're influencing directly with that money and causing conflict. That's interventionism. Not saying I'm not trading with you.
Pause.
Sanctioning trade on a nation because they practice slavery is not interventionism, correct?
Okay, let me put a pause real quick. We can answer that in a second. But let's turn it over to the judges here. I know the judges are biting them out a bit here. Let's go to let Lethe go first. He has some questions, and we'll do this again here in a few minutes.
Is that how you say it? I thought it was let the water kai.
It
You
is
know what?
leaky.
Yeah. I don't know.
Is
I'm
it
just gonna call it what
really?
they call it. Yeah.
My bad.
Oh, you're good. You're good. So, in the case of, say, trying to use trade as a means of establishing a diatribe with a country and getting favorable conditions, like say, like what we did with China back in mid 1900s, what happens when that country elevates itself into a more powerful trading partner that doesn't play by the same rules that we do?
You asking me? Go ahead.
That's
Who are
just
you
a broad
asking?
question.
Yeah, I mean, so like there's no doubt that you know, so I would say, and so this gets a little bit in the nitty gritty, right? So let's look at China, for example. You know, China engages in fraud, right? Like there's no doubt in any way, shape, or form that they engage in fraud. Now, one of the strengths of the Chinese economy is that they don't give a fuck about intellectual property. And I am with them on this one. It's one of the few things I agree with them, right? Huawei will steal some shit in a moment, but America and kind of the rest of Western capitalistic nations have agreed to the game of like IP, and then China doesn't. As far as I say with that regard, based China, fuck IP. But in terms of like the fraud, right? Like when they claim that a product is real and they're selling it, or when they claim that you know, products don't have carcinogenic materials, or when they sell us baby clothes and those baby clothes happen to be flammable but they're labeled as not flammable, right? I think that that is not interventionism when the United States says that they're going to intervene in this regard, because they're not intervening with the country, they're intervening on behalf of the citizens that have been defrauded by the country. That is the same thing as it wouldn't be interventionism if Mexico invaded our southern border with its military and then we fought a war with Mexico, because that would be protecting ourselves. That would still be the isolationist policy. So I think if you're protecting the trade routes and the assets and the property rights of our citizenry, that's not interventionism, but it is complicated and does require communication, trade deals, etc., with those other countries. It doesn't mean that we can wall ourselves off and ignore other countries.
All right, Debate Enjoyer, you want to answer that question for Lethe as well?
Well, because he separated his desired answer from the answer of China agreed to these rules and they're not playing by the rules they agreed to, and made that a different answer, he pretty much said the same thing I was going to. We would switch from our positive economic sanctions, which would be propping them up and trying to help them, to our negative ones, where we might throw a tariff at them or make X demand. If you don't do X demand, we're going to economically sanction your country or economically tariff your country. These are textbook economic conditions. When you tell somebody you either need to meet X, Y, and Z human rights criteria or we're not going to trade with you, that is exactly what an economic sanction is. That is 100% the definition.
Fantastic. Lethe, do you have another question?
So in the case of, like, let's look at the situation that happened with the Houthis recently, where they were challenging trade routes, and it became it infringed upon by America to like, hey, do something about this. Would not doing something about it damage our standing globally and affect the trade deals or other things that we do globally?
Do you want to answer first, since I answered the last one first?
Oh yeah, so I was arguing for American hegemony and maritime support anyway. So yeah, the fact that really that we needed to do something because that's the promise we made. We are the ones that make sure the seas are safe, and essentially, and the fact that this was Israeli trade, it would have interrupted our economy. So you could make economic security arguments for the U.S. there as well, absolutely. But I don't. What did I not answer your question there? What was the question exactly? Sorry. I just say we need to be there because we said we'd be there.
Yeah,
so.
I don't think
essentially, if we're
we disagree
taking
on
an
this as well.
isolationist view on things versus a a hegemonic view, so the difference between those two views, should we stay out of it and let the other countries take care of it, and would we lose capital and trading in doing so?
Yeah, I so from my perspective, right? I don't think if there are American goods on those vessels, then it's in our vested interest as a nation state to protect our property, right? Like that until so long as the United States government exists, so long as that's a thing, then it is, and like these routes are not private routes, but that these are routes that are, you know, kind of like agreed upon with all of these other countries. If there are American citizens, if there are American boats, or if there are goods that are, you know, already agreed upon via contract by Americans, or goods that are American goods that are going somewhere else to sale, then that's not interventionism to protect those goods. Interventionism, again, maybe the concept of interventionism is something that other people disagree with me on, but as far as I'm concerned, interventionism requires that you are attempting to intervene in the way that the nation state governs itself, right? You are using some form of power to stop them or change their behavior, that is against their will. And I don't think protecting our assets and property overseas is a form of that. And I absolutely agree that if we just let ships be bombed by groups. Now, I would say that there's an even simpler fucking answer to this, which is that we shouldn't be having all these goddamn dealings with Saudi Arabia, that we shouldn't be having all of these problems that, you know, this disastrous consequences that we put on in Iran. And then maybe, just maybe, if Yemen and other areas weren't, maybe we shouldn't have supported and or been actively participating in the blockade against Yemen that, you know, led to over 100,000 children dying of dysentery. Maybe there's a fucking reason we're being bombed, and it's, you know, if we just go back a few years in our fucking history, we'll figure out what that reason is. But as it stands today, we need to protect our property. But there are other things we need to do, which are interventionist things that are causing the very fucking problem you mentioned. And I'm not angry at you, I'm angry at dead children that we fucking supported.
U.S. policy, I got you.
Let's go to Sociologic now. Let him ask a question. I believe he's.
Yeah, so I mean, I second Lethe's question of like, if another power gets in, or if another country gets enough power, what's to like continue it to listening to us? I mean, we have Israel right now, our strongest, best ally in the Middle East, and they tend to not listen to us when we can't make commands. We seem to have given them enough power to where we kind of listen to them now. But so like for the interventionism. Like for me, when I hear interventionism, it is literally just trying to make it's Pan America, right? It's Canada's the 51st state. It's take Greenland, it's so on and so forth. I'd be on board if there was ever like a proposition where the other country does like just accepts, but like they never. Why would a country just accept becoming American and essentially losing their national identity? And then, like, how does that not result in us going to war with all of these countries every single time?
Oh, it absolutely doesn't. So when the U.S. goes into these countries, the same way the new Silk Road initiative from China is going into the same way. They go in and they invest in these countries. They give them a ton of money to do X, Y, Z, build roads, build hospitals. We're going to come in and bring all these NGOs and they're going to help your people out. We're going to bring some teachers and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And they prop these nations up. And that makes them trade partners with them. So going to kind of what Scott was saying, if there's U.S. goods on that ship, and even if there's not U.S. goods on that ship, if Israel's goods, which is what was happening, was Israeli goods on the ship, we send in U.S. warships, because if Israel's prices go up as a result of Israel goods being bombed, that means the goods that they're trading us are going up. That hurts U.S. consumers in an indirect way. Also, our trade ally who says, whoa, you just took all these fucking sanctions off the Houthis and now they're bombing us, what the hell? That makes our allies in the regions who we trade with pissed off at us because we let their enemies kind of get away with shit. So that's kind of why we have to step in and do that.
Yeah.
So I would say on the opposite end of this, and I'll, you know, so you know, this is the type of pernicious evil that I'm talking about, right? The International Monetary Fund coming in, going into dictatorial regimes and, you know, third world nation states and giving them large IMF funds, and then knowing that they're not going to be able to fucking pay these back, but maybe they can, right? And going into them and bringing in American corporations to build on these contracts. This is not nation building, right? This is client state building. That's what we do. We go in and we create client states. We make them, we make them debt slaves, just like fucking college kids are, so that they're put into a position where they have to play by our rules and they have to be a part of our interests, or they risk economic collapse. They risk internal strife and struggle. And the U.S. aid, like I said in my introduction, that's not food for hungry, starving people, right? That's CIA funded money to take over institutions and try and change what it is that people believe. Like, U.S. aid is money to Black and Vetch so that Black and Vetch can do research on how to censor certain political opinions in online speech, so that only the ideas that are beneficial to what we consider to be the democratic institutions are going to be able to survive in a country. Look, I agree in the concept of capitalism and private property rights more than fucking anybody. Right. But we are not talking about helping these people. We're talking about helping American corporations. We're talking about helping the wealthy, lucky warlords in these nation states. And we're talking about, this long-term effect that maybe they get to go, become part of like this global fold. But then, of course, we do things like, Janet Yellen and fucking make sure that there's a global, corporate tax rate that is enforced on all of these other countries. And guess what? You lose all your fucking resources unless you agree that you're going to have a tax rate at this degree, and that those taxes are going to be based off of the headquarters of these companies, so that companies like Google and Nike and all these other things can build factories in your countries, but those taxes are going to end up going to America anyways, so you don't even get to fucking appropriately tax the businesses in your nation state. We control and we own these people, and we make them our bitches, and we do so for corporations and for billionaires and for people at like the World Economic Forum and for these elites that come together that want to create this better world. And we do it at the cost of the people that live in these nation states and at the cost of Americans that pay the taxes that fund this bullshit. Like, those things don't trickle down to us because they're not free market principles. They're enforced pretend pseudo ideals, and it's evil. Even the shit that we do that's presumably good is evil. And by the way, last fucking thing, everything that we know is what we're allowed to know. Okay, like what you know is what Nancy Pelosi and a couple of other people that sit in Congress that are on a board say the American public are allowed to know, because it's not a national security interest that we keep this shit secret.
All right.
Yeah.
So
like,
another one before we go on.
It was kind of like a springboard for Tyler,
Okay,
to continue. Yeah. So you can take off after this, Tyler. It's for me, you're right. It's like I hear Trump and America talking about, like, once again, it's like Canada, the 51st state, Greenland, but it's like, did we forget about Puerto Rico? Right? A country as small as Puerto Rico, right? Like, should have been taken care of and solved. We should have already had the 51st state, and yeah, it's kind of just like a floating island, that a floating forgotten third child, right? It's just sitting there, and now we're talking about other nations. Yeah,
so
it's like,
you wanted to say island of garbage, didn't you?
No. My wife is Puerto Rican. I live in a Puerto Rican. I would never. I'm just saying that we kind of like we talk this big game about how we want to build nations, but like if other nations look to Puerto Rico as an example, why would they feel like it would be any different? And then, like, honestly, what happened with Puerto Rico if we're such a great nation?
All right, before you answer, Tyler, just a little housekeeping. Hey, guys, if y'all like the content, make sure y'all hit the sub, donate bits, do whatever. All the money's going to be going towards stuff towards the stream, mainly for these tournaments and the series afterwards. We're going to have some cool stuff in mind, et cetera, et cetera. The rest of the debate's going to go as follows. I'm going to turn it over to Tyler here in a second, then let them go about free reign for another 10 minutes. Then I'll let the judges ask some questions, have them answer again. And then we're going to do at the end after they ask questions. I'll have them and they answer. We'll do closings, and then we'll have the chat. Y'all will get the vote, and the judges will vote as well. All right, so Tyler, go ahead, and then y'all can go back at each other.
So that money that's allocated to these countries oftentimes goes to corporations, NGOs, government officials, absolutely, but it also goes to infrastructure in those cities. So what we see is when we invest into these countries, almost across the board, we see household income spike, poverty rate go down, life expectancy go way up, living standards raise, education raise, transportation raise, medical advancements raises, technology raises. Every facet of their life gets better. And the reason we're seeing more corporations than small mom and pop businesses do this is because of capitalism. Capitalism allows these larger businesses with higher productivity to take in a lower profit margin, thus allowing them to go to the government and give the lowest bid to do the job in these countries for the cheapest. So if we are embracing capitalism, we need to embrace the fact that corporations are an effect of capitalism. A good one for the most part. This is when private people have ownership to buy into companies so they can get part of the profit as well. Like, it's a good thing that corporations exist, and them profiting is my 401k and 70% of the country's stock market. I don't know why them being given some money because they're offering lower bids to go and make these places. So again, another point you brought up is, why do we care? What's the return on the American consumer to prop these places up like this? Well, when we go into that, we look at free trade. I don't think Scott's going to dispute that free trade has skyrocketed our disposable income percentage spent on household goods. Food is now cheaper than it's ever been pre-COVID anyway. Almost every household good is cheaper than it's ever been pre-COVID. So that's true. We rely on free trade for that. Why are we not going to try to make these nations better so that they can produce the goods that we trade with them for cheaper, so we can get more for less, so that our consumers pay less? It automatically, like the idea of just letting these nations we trade with fail, it doesn't work with free trade to a degree because
so I'll respond. So what you said is just patently false. Now, it is true that if the IMF goes into an area and we build schools, education goes up. It is true that if we build bridges and roads, that those bridges and roads can be used. You're not wrong. And in that regard, right? And again, it's the same situation kind of like with the Korean War, right? We can see the success in that we paid for something and we got the thing, right? And you can say, well, that's a positive outcome. The problem is there's a lot of problems with what you said. Number one, it's not capitalism. And the reason it's not capitalism is because it's not that corporations have economies of scale and so they're better suited to go in and build bridges. It's because you have to apply to the government and you have to get approved by the IMF and those things to deal with the people that we want you to deal with. That is government coercion against the free market, not capitalism. That is the government saying, well, we don't trust your local Indian or your local, well, let's say Congolese or whatever fucking nation, or Liberian or whatever nation you're in. We don't trust those businesses, and so what we actually need is, yeah, you can build those things, but we tell you that you're going to use this money towards infrastructure and building these things, and you're going to build the things that we want, not necessarily the things that the people in that country want built. And on top of that, you're going to do it with the companies that we approve. It is giving them a loan so that that money can then go back into the U.S. economy away from those countries, and the presumed return on investment is supposedly going to be good enough for them to pay off all the debt that we put them in. And sometimes it is, right? Sometimes they build themselves out of that hole. Sometimes they utilize the protection of the American, global hegemonic empire, right? And they can go in all of these other domains. But again, at what cost? And the cost is that all of this money that is spent on these presumed loans and things is money that uses state power to keep it in the hands of billionaires and corporations, as opposed to letting the market decide what are the most valuable things that we can provide. What is it that people want the most? It is coercion. It is socialism, not capitalism by any stretch of the definition. And so, yes, if you want to use socialism and use stolen wealth, and then make sure that it goes into this private socialistic market and you're going to get some trickle down from your 401k because you're middle class. Yeah, you can measure those outcomes. But what I'm saying is that you're not measuring it against the other outcome, which is going to these places and just offering them a loan. Like, why can't BlackRock do much like they did in the Ukraine situation? Why can't they just go to this place and go, hey, we think if you build a bunch of shit, your country will be wealthier, and then you can pay us back. So here's a loan. And then they just give them the loan. But that's not what they're doing.
You can't have a layman a laptop and say, hey, go code me a program, because we built this infrastructure. We know this infrastructure. Our economy is extremely complicated, as I said in my intro, economic intervention and intervention generally is pushing your culture, your government structure, or your economy onto another nation through means of coercion, whether it be economic or military. So,
yes.
Yeah,
that's not capitalism, right? Like that's I agree with you.
Oh,
that's how the IMF works.
I'm sorry,
but that's not capitalism.
This is
that's
just
not the beauty of corporations.
No,
that's socialism.
No. I'm sorry. The capitalist point was just for the bidding. I'm sorry if I made you think I was making that broader point. I was just saying how corporations get their money and then make the bids with the government. That's the capitalist part only.
That's not capitalism either, right? Like that's a monopsony, right? When you have one buyer, and the state controls what the product is. The state controls who buys the product, right? And so you have one. That is state enforced monopsony, number one, and then the state picks and chooses the winners and losers, not based off of free market principles, but based off of themselves being a monopsony. So that is also anti-capitalism.
Again, this is all just to clarify. I'm talking about what happens in the United States, how those corporations become to the point that they are. That is the capitalist part. And how they make that bidding with the government. That's where the capitalism.
It's capitalistic in the sense that they get to that place, but most of these places. But Black and Vetch, for example, is, I brought this up, and is because like Black and Vetch is not like a weapons manufacturer. They're a defense contractor. Okay, well then what are they making? Right? Like these companies are pseudo private organizations. They're not really they're not engaged in free market capitalism. They're engaged with fulfilling contracts of the state. This isn't capitalism. These people that come in, that go into other nations and build, they're pseudo private entities that are working on behalf of of American interests. Again, this is America spending your money, right? Your tax dollars on these places and then funneling that money into their chosen winners not based off of any capitalist means. What I am saying is that if we, instead of doing IMF loans and then forcing nation states to agree to all of these terms and then putting them under our thumb as a client state, that if we just allowed the free market to do as the free market would, countries that are ready, that have a culture, that are ready to join the first world will automatically be given private loans because it will be profitable to do so. And countries that aren't will remain shitty. And what will happen is we will produce bigger and better things. We'll produce things like cures for diseases. We'll produce things like technologies that make lives easier. And we'll have more economic power and more growth. And more people will want to trade with us and want to figure out how it is that we did these things.
You know the term hood rich? That's what happens when you give a nation that's in economic prosperity a giant loan, never give them the structure on how to build it up.
That's what America does, and we depend upon that. That's what the IMF does.
No, you were saying it was the opposite.
Private banking. Private banking wouldn't do that because it would be too risky. They'd lose money if that happened, so they wouldn't do it.
Let me get my rebuttal out here, because you said that the government is picking wins and losers. How they do that is a bidding system on who can get the government job done. These are government employees. So what the government's doing is taking economic success stories, people that did great in the American markets, hiring them to go over to these countries and build that infrastructure over there to teach them these same techniques and mechanisms so that their economies prosper in the same way. If this happened on a
where are your success stories? I'm just curious. Because like what you're saying is just patently not true. They're not economic success stories. They're corporations that work under monopsony under the state. Again, where are these great success? Where are these
global poverty world? I can give you examples. Here's one for instance.
No, I'm asking you. Okay, so your success story is the Philippines.
Yeah, look at the advancement, the technological advancement. Look at Afghanistan when we were in there. There's just a bunch of examples. When we were in Afghanistan,
you say look at Afghanistan. I rest my fucking case. $2.9 trillion, $2.9 trillion, hundreds of thousands of people dead, and the moment we fucking leave, it is a fucking failed state that has gone back to the Taliban. The fact that you think Afghanistan is a success story of global Western hegemonic power and interventionism is fucking hilarious.
I'm trying to get you details of that, because while we were there, the life expectancy went up several years. The education rate doubled because women were allowed to go to school.
And women aren't now.
Yeah, all sorts of things happened when the U.S. was there intervening, and as soon as we stepped out, they went back to draconian standards that no woman there wants. Like,
and what did we gain? What did we gain for the hundreds of thousands dead and the trillions of dollars we lost? What did we gain in that period of time? Are you saying the return on investment just requires us to spend another $20 trillion while we're $37 trillion in debt? And then 100 years from now, we'll gain what from Afghanistan? Oil that we already have in fucking Texas? What the fuck were we gaining? Poppy seed fields so that we could make more Oxycontin and have more dead people from fucking fentanyl overdoses? What the fuck were we gaining by being in Afghanistan?
The amount of people that died in Afghanistan was exponentially less while we were there. We saw the deaths cut off. We saw their life expectancy go up. We saw education go up. Less people were dying if life expectancy goes up in that nation.
So let me just
were we not involved in Afghanistan and the Middle East before that?
Let me just.
Were we not involved in training the fucking Taliban to fight the Russians in the 1970s? Did we not set up the fucking failed state that was there before? Afghanistan is not a success story because you can look at a short period of time where we imposed education and we imposed order at spending trillions of dollars. What it is a failure that we started in 1957 under Eisenhower, and we have ruined that country and much of the Middle East for the past 70 fucking years. What are you talking about?
May I ask a question? Let me ask a question.
Funding on the exact opposite side, though, that's just being ignored here.
Hold on. Let me just ask a question. I just want to clarify what your argument is, Tyler, because I'm a little bit confused. But so when you brought up Afghanistan, is your argument that your argument seems to be, and just to correct me if I'm wrong, just to make sure I'm following along, is that while we're there, everything was much better for the people there, and us leaving is actually an example of when isolationism fails, because if we had just stayed, things would have been better. Is that your argument?
Yeah, nobody had died in the last.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear with
So not interventionism. We just immigrate. We just expand the global empire, and we have troops on the ground, and we waste trillions of dollars, and then hopefully in 100 years the world will be a better place, and all the deaths and all the money and all of the people, like every person that dies in America because they lost their job and they decided to start a shotgun because they can't feed their family, all of those deaths are worth it too, because in 100 years maybe this fucking desert somewhere that doesn't share a culture with us will be another ally in our fucking expansion of our pseudo-capitalistic empire. Like, what?
If life expectancy is going up, that means less people are dying.
So here's what we're gonna. This is perfect timing. Perfect timing. All right, we're getting close to the end here. I'm gonna let the judges go ask another question each, and then I'll let y'all answer that.
I just feel like that's of little consolation to the people who died from American bombs.
You're talking about lives lost and money. And if lives lost are on my side, then all you're saying is it's too much money to save lives, so just fuck them. And I don't think anyone agrees with that.
Spent money is lives lost, dude. Like every 1% of unemployment in America, you have somewhere between 30 to 50,000 dead Americans. Okay, when you spend money and you steal that money out of the economy and you slow down our economic growth, what you are doing is you are sacrificing American lives. You are sacrificing American prosperity, and you're sacrificing innovation and progress that leads to the very medical advancements and technological improvements that lead to happiness and health and well-being and preventing loss of life that we would have for everyone in the future.
So you're saying
I'm gonna let you respond, and then we're going to the judges. So make it quick. Then we go to
the 1% we climbed in unemployment over the last year means that 50,000 more people died. But when I just pulled up the death rates, it showed me the opposite. You just made an untrue claim. We can go to 8% unemployment.
There's a 1982
hold on.
Let me finish. Other Harvard studies.
Let it finish. Let it finish. I'll let you get a minute to respond.
And our starvation deaths and all these things are non-existent. They don't exist in the West. They don't exist in the United States. Nobody's dying for that. They might be lack of health care. That's a long-term problem. So nobody's dying because our unemployment rate.
All right, you got 1 minute to respond, and then the judges are going.
Yeah, no, I'll just like, I don't have it exactly on hand, but I'll get it to you in just a little while. There are absolutely studies that show that suicide rates due to unemployment go up, that, people end up killing themselves from drug overdoses, et cetera. Now, when you look at excess mortality, what you will actually see is a negative right? So you'll actually see people that over time, if they're impoverished, they lose weight. And so obesity, and because of their lack of money, they can't afford cigarettes. And so because they stop smoking and because they lose weight, that excess deaths actually go up, right? Actually go down. But when you're talking about actual lives, what you're talking about is somewhere between 30 to 50,000 people dying. And then you're talking about other people that would have died earlier but living longer because they quit smoking and they started eating less food because they no longer have enough money to be able to be obese. But again, that's a loss of happiness in what people want in every category.
All right, so here's what we do. We're going to go to the judges. They're going to ask y'all each one question each. Y'all will be able to respond to each. I'll give you like probably 2 minutes, I don't know, each total. I don't know, somewhere in that range to respond to each question. And then we're going to go to closings. I guess we'll start with Fabian since Tyler started. But that's going to be how the format going forward here is. Go ahead, Sociologic, ask this question.
Yeah, it's really gonna be back to Puerto Rico. If Puerto Rico was such a huge failure, it's such a small island, and we're such a large nation, right? Like, if Puerto Rico is a failure, like, I don't see how this expansion can go to a country that is larger or already more economically advanced. Like, can you explain to me like why Puerto Rico was a failure or is still a failure?
It looks like a multitude of factors, several of which being corruption in the state. A lot of it was people there were arrests that vindicated Trump. They claimed Trump botched the hurricane there and this and that. I saw all sorts of stuff like that. But at the end of the day, 1 or 2 examples of failed policy often has to do with a lot of different ideological battles that are going on. People are trying to make Puerto Rico a state. There could be some of the influence and maybe why they would let it be a bigger issue than it is, or maybe see it fail so that we can make it that way. All sorts of different things with Puerto Rico there. I would say the fact that we don't have enough influence, we're not actually going in and exerting our influence over these people. Like, the amount of influence we have over UK to stop corruption was, we're not going to say yes on $1 billion loan if you don't fire somebody. They could have said, go fuck yourself, and that was it. That's the limit of our power. Like, we really don't have as much say over their day-to-day as you would think.
Yeah, so one of the major reasons why Puerto Rico is a failed state, like the 2 major reasons. Number 1 is the Jones Act. That is, we have imposed on them as a U.S. territory an inability for them to gain stop-off resources from other trade routes. So when ships come from Europe or, China or whatever, they either have to stop off and offload all of their goods at Puerto Rico, which is not financially feasible. So what they'll do is they'll go to like Florida or, a port city in the Gulf of Mexico, et cetera. And then because of the Jones Act, they can't like leave 10% of their goods on their ship and then go to the Philippines and then drop off those other goods. So what happens is all of those goods have to come off of the ship, and then an American or usually Puerto Rican vessel then has to pick up all of those goods and then go to Puerto Rico, which means that there's just a massive price difference in all of the goods. Everything is more expensive in Puerto Rico than it should be in an economy that falls behind. The second one is IQ drain, right? Because Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory. The pathway to citizenship is basically whenever you want to come to America, you'll get it, right? And so because of that, anybody that is financially successful that could build Puerto Rico and could, has a high IQ and has privilege and has resources, they're just better off just hopping on a plane, going to America, and then just getting their citizenship with some paperwork. And so, Puerto Rico is a special case there. But again, it is over and over and over again, when you want to look at like what causes that devastation, it's, the American Western imperialism imposing its socialist tendencies that are anti-free market, that don't allow the free market that would allow, Puerto Rico to be able to just simply get goods and get goods cheaply.
I just want to also state that Fabian made the argument why Logan Paul is the nicest and greatest guy ever, because he actually went to Puerto Rico and is investing in the country, as opposed to Bad Bunny, who left them high and dry with IQ drain. Logan Paul for president. Y'all heard it here first.
There's a lot of people that invest in Puerto Rico. It's a crime there.
Yeah. On that note,
You're
Leafy, let me get your question.
Dangerous.
Elon Musk.
Yeah.
I'm glad Ali went first because my question's along the same lines, but it's going to use a different example, which would be Haiti. We bought the debt from the French and then proceeded to try to do the same thing in Haiti. And once we realized this wasn't going to be a good case, we basically abandoned the place. And look at where we're at now. And now that we have Haitians in our country, how are they being treated in regards to what's being proposed?
Generally, Haitians are being treated great, even there were some anecdotes during the presidential election where some unverified comments might have been amplified way more than they should have in a responsible democracy. Generally, they're being treated great. There's a lot of people that came in from Haiti on our refugee programs under Biden. They come in, they get vouchers to go live places that pay much more than the average rent payer in a lot of the places that they went to, including Springfield. Generally, they're being treated pretty good, but yeah, like there's a lot of interventions that are pretty easy because cultural values line up, and then there's some that just, it ain't working yet, and maybe we just need to back off and try again in a couple decades. That would be one of them. There's some wild stuff there, and the fact that we aren't actually this imperialist nation that goes in and dictates what they need to do, and they need to do exactly what we say, and blah, blah, blah. We don't go in there and do that, and that's why we have these problems, is we're leaving them sovereignty. We're just trying to inspire change the same way China is through the New Silk Road Initiative. Inspire change through economic, I guess it is coercion still, but like it's lending money for X, Y, and Z to get A, B, and C also in trade negotiations, maybe, or some shit like that.
Did you have another question?
Haiti is,
yeah, I was gonna say, but then it sounds like it sounds like you're pushing for, harder coercion, which then kind of defeats your first point, which was that you can do this without like war. War should be your last resort. But it seems that like with all these nations that don't seem to culturally meld with us, we have to use stronger and stronger coercion, which just becomes war.
I think for some, you just need to maybe give them up, do a longer term approach with trade. China came around to capitalism in the 80s? They were someone that nobody thought we'd ever be able to work with, even sooner under Reagan. I think Reagan was the one that inspired that. But in the 80s, their economy switched. Like, it happens. I think that we need to find ways to slowly reshape them from the outside. And that would be the Democrats' entire platform is getting Iran on our side so that we can use them to start shaping these countries in the Middle East. And that's why they gave them $26 billion.
Yeah, I mean, like Haiti is a special case for some reasons, right? Obviously, Haiti was brutalized probably more than any. I won't say more than any other country, but the island countries, especially with sugar plantations, was some of the most brutal form of chattel slavery in world history, right? I mean, obviously, the transatlantic slave trade and chattel slavery was a bad thing, obviously, right? And worse than many other forms of slavery in the world. Not as long lasting, obviously. The Ottoman Empire still had slaves up until World War II, and we still have slavery in the Middle East today. No thanks to American involvement, i.e. Libya. And, interventionism, what does it do? It causes slave trade to come back. But, Haiti is somewhat special in some regard because they had one of the most violent overthrows of anyone that was the wrong skin color, right? The overthrow of the French in Haiti, when they kind of fought back, if you will, took on something that we haven't really ever seen since. There was a little bit of that in Zimbabwe, but for the most part, there have been a lot of countries that have ended slavery, right? And so Haiti really fucked themselves by doing that. Obviously they got rid of their quote unquote oppressors, but they got rid of all of the resources, all of the wealth, all of the established, security and order. And so Haiti has had a rough time recovering. No help, and no thanks again to, Western interventionism, right? Or interventionism, right? I mean, Bill Clinton, being in charge of the Haiti recovery, and then, the Clinton Foundation coming in after the hurricane to try and save and help and build homes in Haiti, but really hardly any homes at all got built. And we had tons and tons of money get funneled back to corrupt politicians like the Clintons, as opposed to actually helping these people, is kind of a case of failed interventionism. Not because interventionism itself is flawed if done appropriately, but because politicians are corrupt liars, and that, trusting the state to do this in general causes so many problems. And so Haiti is an example of A cultural example of a nation that is probably more difficult than other places, but also an example of failed interventionism, which we see over and over and over again. That is the rule, not the exception. The rule is that usually nation states do not fare better when America comes in and tries to impose order upon people that don't want it. It is the few times that it works have been from people that wanted our help, right? I mean, like we talked multiple times about South Korea. Well, the biggest difference between a place like Haiti and a place like South Korea is that the South Koreans desperately wanted us there. Obviously not everyone wanted us there, and I still think there are issues with it. But when it comes to intervening in places that simply aren't ready and don't want us, the cost is too high, which is why capitalism is the right answer here, because capitalism will only go to the places that actually want our help, as opposed to interventionism, which tries to impose that will.
All right. Well, that was actually like at 2 minutes. That was impressive. It's like you had the internal clock there. That shook, Fabian. I'll be honest. All right. So here's what we do. We're gonna go closings. Tyler started. I guess this is gonna be kind of, I guess, back-to-back Fabian here, because, since we're doing closings, we all got 3 minutes. But Fabian, you can go ahead and start off with the closing. All right, after the closing, judges, send me who won. Then we'll come to y'all and chat. I'm going to give y'all some time to vote after closings. We can discuss the debate for about 5 minutes. And then I'll have y'all announce the winners and tell them why y'all think they won. All right, Fabian, go ahead and give us a closing here. You got 3 minutes. I'll give you a 1 finger and a half point for 30 seconds.
Yeah, so just to kind of reiterate a lot of my positions in closing and kind of rehash this. I think average debate, Tyler here, said a lot of things that I do agree with, right? We ought to protect American property. We ought to protect, trade routes. We ought to engage in, trying to bring economic prosperity and cultural values to other places. In sociology, there is a term that most sociologists use in regarding the spread of American culture and the way that it spreads so fast. And that is a term called Coca-Colaization, right? It is American capitalism, and it is American branding and products that actually spread American cultural values. It is, again, and there is a rule in warfare that was never broken in modern history until 2000, until the Ukraine invasion, which is that when countries have McDonald's, they don't cross borders in war, right? When countries trade, when countries are involved in, economic entanglements, it becomes increasingly more difficult for those countries to justify aggression. When the United States is engaging in being the world police in lieu of the UN because the UN fails at it, the presumption is that we don't, which we do. I think world history since, America became the dominant superpower following World War II has shown over and over and over again that Western involvement at a military level more often than not leads to disastrous consequences, deaths, trillions of dollars lost that could have been spent on making this world a better place, right? Like I don't think in the long run the math adds up that when you bomb countries and people into oblivion and then rebuild the countries that you bombed into oblivion and then funnel all of that money to corporations in America and maintain the wealth and power of billionaires and banking systems, that this somehow makes America a better place. But I was only a lowly private in the Army, right? I was just some nobody. And so if you want the military understanding, apart from the CIA and InQtel and the National Endowment for Democracy and the Foreign Relations Council and the IMF and the if you want someone's opinion on just that, the worst excesses of it, I challenge everyone to read War is Hell by Major General Smedley Butler discussing World War I, the highest decorated Marine to ever exist in U.S. history, and explain to you how it truly is the politicians and the corporations and the billionaires that get rich off of this, and how it is not you that has helped. It is just them.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Let me just reset the timer. And wait, here we go. And Tyler, you go ahead and go.
All right. Interventionism has been a part of foreign policies for as long as there's been nation states, and there is no reason to think there aren't some bad examples out there. Absolutely. I said that right up front. If you judge it by just the worst examples, you're going to think it's terrible. That's why I gave you a ton of other examples. Like any other system that you group people in, like religion or government, are going to be some people that abuse these things, use them to their own means. That doesn't mean every religion is evil. That doesn't mean everyone that belongs to a certain religion is evil. It doesn't mean everyone from a certain nation state is evil as well. Just because there are bad actors or bad attempts at interventionism. Starting with the UK, the US, and somewhat France, using economic coercion on their trade allies with their colonies and their neighboring countries to force human rights measures on them of ending the practice of slavery in their nations against their will, to modern day where we make the entire lives of everybody in a nation better on pretty much every single level. Interventionism has made the world a better place, and in turn makes the United States a better place as we have better trade partners to trade with. Investing in these nations is how we grow them, is how we inspire them. Having that guidance there is absolutely pivotal. Having corporations take bids with the government is how we get it for the least amount of the American dollars. So these corporations that are getting rich are actually doing the job the best for the least amount of money, as is capitalistic. Now, when these nations do succeed, again, our trade prices go down across the board. It's indisputable. But giving them a blank check to somebody and then no other direction after that is how we just get the same situation as if you give a poor person a lottery ticket. They're not going to invest that the same way a billionaire does that same exact amount of money. It's basic laws of capitalism there for how money should be allocated to those best suited to spend it. Russia was in trade with Ukraine, the EU, the US, and most of the world. That did not stop them at all from going into Ukraine. In fact, when we told them that we were going to put economic coercion on them, that made them think second about it, and we can see the damage that that's actually doing to their economy, as well as NATO. NATO's the reason Ukraine hasn't lost yet. That's another form of economic intervention, preventing one of the world's most lethal militaries from taking over its tiny neighbor. Gotcha, 1 minute. So in this instance, Scott is saying that we are imperialists forcing our ways on people by giving them foreign aid and trying to change them for the good. But in his instance, we wouldn't have NATO, so he would literally let brutal dictators move into other countries and completely erase their people and culture. Because it's none of our business, and U.S. soldiers shouldn't die, we shouldn't spend U.S. money on it. Free trade requires U.S. intervention. Hegemony requires U.S. intervention. We are there to make sure that people can go out and trade in the first place and not get robbed by pirates or nations that want to take their things. We are the ones that intervene. We are the ones that allow it. And without us, we wouldn't have all the great things we have today. America, baby.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, chat. I'm going to be putting the poll up right now, and we'll give you all 5 minutes to vote to decide. Hope everybody. Oh, God, that beeper is fucking annoying that I have here. I don't know how to get rid of it. It's gone. Okay. I think I'm going to be having nightmares about that beeper. All right, 1 second here, guys. Let me put this up, and cool. Polls up. Everybody go vote right now. Make sure y'all tell us who wins, and we will decide. I'm going to go take a quick bathroom break. The rest of y'all can talk amongst yourselves, say what y'all thought. Judges, don't say who won yet, and then we'll go from there.
We all know chat won, so we know how this goes.
Yeah,
Ali, do your thing.
So, what were the okay, so every example that you gave, I feel like came with like a huge like retaliation or rebuttal. Like where were all like the positive?
Me?
Yeah.
I thought most of my points were unrebutted. That I listed off all of the things that go up when.
So I just gave Scott the springboard. I got you.
Yeah, hold on. I listed off all the things like living standard, education, all that thing. And when he answered that, he's like, "Yeah, all these things go up. Education goes up, living standard goes up, cost of household income goes up, the economy gets better."
I maybe you forgot, right? But I explained that that intervention in the Middle East has been happening since the end of World War I, when England cut up countries and put groups of people together that were different ethnic groups under the same banner, like Iraq, for example, right? Iraq is a terribly drawn country, right? You have Sunni, Shia, and Kurd all in one nation. Like, these are not people that tend to get along with each other, but they are towards the fucking economic interests of Britain following World War I, right? And then I explain, the Eisenhower Doctrine in 57, how we were involved there. So you're comparing a time where we were involved making things worse and have been involved making things worse for a long time towards a time that we spent trillions of dollars actively there. And then I said, well, what the fuck did we gain from it? The only thing we gained was what? Control over poppy fields so that we could have more fentanyl and Oxycontin.
But that, at the end of the day, doesn't really refute the point that when we go into these nations,
for one, like Oxycontin,
go through the roof in terms of their living.
No, it absolutely does. This has been a theme. This has been a theme, I think, throughout the debate, right? Which is, you compare if we spend money and if we spend resources and we get outcomes that change in a positive direction in any point in time, that is a definition of success. And I agree that that's your definition of success. And we said before that that's not my definition of success, because you're comparing a before and after and saying, hey, we spent $2.9 trillion going into this, and look, we got less deaths and we got more girls educated and we got these things. And I'm saying, okay, but what would that $2.9 trillion have done elsewhere? Right. And so you can't compare those things. Also, I just want to point out for the record, if anyone wants to check it out, you can look at like the Obama sanctions on Russia. Ukraine was more negatively impacted than Russia was when we sanctioned them. And again, you can talk about how, if not for American interventionism, countries might invade other countries. But I think it's only fair if you also state, if not for American interventionism, many of the reasons that they invade these other countries also wouldn't exist, right? I mean, like, if not for American interventionism in Ukraine, we might not see Russia invading Ukraine. We may have, we see that as a place of massive resources and natural gas. And a natural competitor to Russia's natural gas, so that we can isolate, Russia economically. And that's many of the reasons why we helped stage the coup in 2014 and supported it, so that they would be our ally, and so that we could have, resources available to Europe.
I don't know if that's a factual statement. We didn't really help stage a coup.
Let me jump in here real quick because
did we not? I mean, I'm not saying we put troops on the ground. I'm not saying we gave them weapons, but we definitely funded
Victoria
them.
Nuland Hall is a little bit overstated based on what people claim.
I'll say this:
I don't care about the person. I care about the facts.
As a person
She's
without
the head
a
of the
vote,
State Department though,
and without a judging thing here, I will say this: I definitely found it interesting, the tactic that you used, Tyler, as opposed to what I personally would have done. I definitely would have came in with much more of America is America's first. Who gives a shit about what happens to the rest of the world? That's the tactic I would have took for sure. And you kind of went with, hey, all these wonderful things happen. And I don't know if this is a good or bad thing, but have y'all watched The Mandalorian? Do y'all remember the client, who the big bad from the first season, and he gives that speech about all the things the Empire touches, like prosperity increases, crime reduces, all those things. I gotta say, you came off very much that guy, to me, as a unbiased observer. Oh, it's a good clip. You'll have to check it out. But
Mandalorian season 1 is good as fuck. When Jon Favreau actually cared and Disney kept their fucking hands off of it for the most part.
He was a great character. I wish they had
even
killed
if you hate
Werner
Disney
Herzog's
Star
character.
Wars. You
I
definitely
gave
should
up on
watch
Star
season
Wars.
1.
I will. I'll
Werner Herzog's character was cool as fuck. I want to see. Now let me see the baby. That guy was thrilled. All right, so the chat has ended in a tie, but luckily it doesn't fucking matter because this is another example of Gibbs getting saved by his format because the judges have made a decision that took chat out of it. And then I wouldn't have to reveal my fantastic tiebreaker strategy that I have not revealed to anybody because we'd be making it up on the spot. But here we go. Let's go with sociologic. Who won and why?
I gave it to Scott. Scott took me. It wasn't proven to me that interventionism benefited us in any way, or it really benefited the countries long term. Considering the fact that I think we need to work on our own country first before we even start thinking about looking at any other countries, and then 2, we already have territories that we've fucked over that are still our territories, but not our states. And it's like we have these people, and they're, to Scott's point, they're just coming over here rather than us making over there better. And it's a small island, so like the syllabus check for me was lost. So yeah, so Fabian, I gave it to you, baby.
All right, Lethy.
So I came into this with a very strong bias, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to hold on to my bias. I'm going to have to say Scott won. He was able to address points that pretty much were the crux of the arguments, even before the arguments were made to begin with, which is irritating and why I wanted to vote against him, but he would not allow me to. So Scott wins.
Well, I mean, to be fair, you were biased probably against my ideology, not so much against Western imperialism. And you know what I mean? Like, to be fair, the topic kind of helps too, right? I think you probably were, you know what I mean? Like, if there would have been a lefty, anarchist here or something that was arguing the same thing as me, you would have been biased towards both, maybe. But I appreciate it nevertheless.
Yeah, and see, this is how, I don't know if this is how big brain I was, but to avoid people picking bias, I picked judges I thought would not be biased, except Lethy obviously is biased. However, the topic offset that was my strategy. You know what I'm saying? So I try to make it so they'd have the pros and cons for each side. But we do what we can with what's available. All right, so yes, it looks like Fabian's advancing to the finals. Average debate enjoyer. It looks like you'll be hashing out this round, but you did well. This is a very good debate. I think this is much more even. I think debates have all gotten much more even as we've gone forward from the first.
I'm just curious.
Day.
Is he going to be a judge in the finals?
No, I have another twist if I can get it done for the judges
right.
of the finals.
Fair enough.
That we're just changing things up because each time I'm not going to reveal what that is. We have to get through our next pairing. And people have been sick. So bear with me on how long it takes for me to get this done. Hopefully we can have another one next Friday and we can get to the finals. But no, he won't be a judge. That would be not good. Unless I get desperate, then who knows what the fuck I'll do. On the side note, we're gonna give y'all an announcement for going forward on what we're gonna do for the seasonal format. The seasonal format is gonna be modeled after MMA Junkie fantasy fighting in the forums rules, right? All right. And so what that means is people are going to be able to call people out. There's going to be an algorithm that after everybody has about the first season completed, the algorithm will go into place, and basically the algorithm can do predicted matchups. But it's going to be streak oriented, so you can use streaks to your advantage. Say you want to call out someone you think is a scrub, you get a couple win streak, and you can go, and then it'll put you in what we'll call contenders matches. And if you win your contenders matches, you go on to fight for either a number one contenders match or a title, depending on how big the season is to go. But this will last over. We'll decide. I'll probably just match people up off the first one just to establish a title as contenders based off initial rankings going in. So everybody that competed in the Grand Prix, guess what? Y'all are all going to start off ahead of the curve if anybody else wants to get in. So that's good. So y'all get a little bit of ranking advantage when it comes to that. Then, like I said, it'll last about a month, and we'll have decided title in that time period. We'll have each it competed, and after about 2 months to a month, we'll be moving on to the next season, and then you can crown yourself the champion of that season, and let's see how long they can hold the championship. That's going to be the plan. I'll probably do some kind of year-end thing for that. In the winner of that, I'll probably get some kind of monetary prize. There will be some kind of prize for this. I don't know what this prize will be. And if you win the Grand Prix, at the end of the year, your name will go on to a trophy I'm having made. And it's going to be engraved on there permanently. So we'll have it, and we'll have a nice big display somewhere behind me at some point. That's going to be the format going forward for the seasonal format. But like I said, we'll have hopefully we have next week. We have the next semifinal match. If not, we'll have it soon. Thanks everybody for coming. Let's give everybody shout outs. We'll start with our judges this time. Sociologic, you can start us off.
What's up, guys? I go by Sociologic. I just want to tell everyone in the chat, give each and every single one of these beautiful, beautiful men a follow over here. All right, look at the entertainment that's being provided, particularly and especially Gibbsy, bringing you an actual debate space where people can have the bragging rights and the record to actually point to. Thank you, Gibbs, for having me, fellas. Thanks for arguing on behalf. Lethy, it was a pleasure judging with you.
Thanks so much. Oh, and one final thing, since the chat brought it up before I turn it, Lethy. The goal is, guys, if y'all, the viewers, like this enough and y'all throw enough money, then in addition to the trophy, I'll get some kind of belt that we can ship from champion the champion, and that would be kind of cool, and hopefully it doesn't get lost. I mean, that's what Junkie Fantasy Fighting did, and it never got lost, and people had that belt for years and years going around. So maybe we can get that going. We'll see. It depends on how much y'all pay. Ad rev is not enough because thank you, Hassan and the Dalaban. We love y'all. Y'all cost us all the ad revenue. It's all your fault. Fuck you, bitches.
I like the equal blame. I like the equal blame.
Yeah, it's all their bastard fault. Anyway, going ahead. Lethe.
Yeah, I was about to call you out for not getting a belt going because we all know that is the superior way to show who is a winner and who is a true champion in these spaces.
Baby steps.
Hey, beautiful format. This was fun. Great hearing two giants argue against each other. It was a slugfest all the way through, and I think both of you represented quite well. Glad to be here, and thank you for having me as a judge. Your boy Lethe Waterkai. Chilling.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. All right, Average Debate Enjoyer. Tell us who you are, where you going. What's your life story, all that good jazz.
Oh, well, I grew up in a small town. I'm Average Debate Enjoyer, Tyler. I'm working on a really big fucking video. I'm going to really go in depth about the 2024 election and talk about literally why the Biden administration lost the will of the voters. Based on polling data and all that. I'm going hard. I've been doing fucking research for like a month and a half straight. You can ask my family and friend. I pee in Gatorade bottles. It's so dedicated. I'm working. Once that's done, though, I'm just here to debate, man. I love it. I love talking politics. I never even knew a real libertarian before I talked to Scott, and he's enlightened me so much about like shit. It's just cool. So everyone who wants me on a panel, debate, whatever, I'm always down. That's all I'm here for.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And to our current winner advancing to the finals. How does it feel to be advancing to the finals? Fabian Liberty.
As a capitalist, I appreciate competition. So I'm very happy to have another debate panel space come back. Like I think Twitch and YouTube poll has been missing some of that old flair of like big channels that used to do a lot of panels and stuff. And and I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for the win. Thank you for whomever was the tiebreaker, I guess, in chat. You know what I mean? To give me a
we didn't have a tiebreaker in chat. It didn't matter because the judges both decided.
Whomever was the vote that brought it to a tie. You know what I mean? I enjoy debate. I have one goal predominantly. My primary goal is spreading libertarianism. So I'm happy to hear that someone is saying, hey, like I didn't even really know they're real libertarians, and I'm coming into conflict with them. I appreciate it. You can find me Fabian Liberty on X if you want to see me be more toxic, or follow me on YouTube if you want to watch Libertarian Nerd Nights and learn about libertarianism or reactions and stuff. And I appreciate you having me here. It's been fun.
All right, so much. All right, boys. I appreciate all that. We're gonna just wave goodbye. And as for the rest of y'all, I will be right back. I'm just going to end the stream because it's easier for me to do it that way. It's for YouTube uploads and whatnot, and I'm lazy. So we're going to do it that way and come back, guys. Anybody that's interested, we will do gaming and maybe a little bit of post-debate chat before the gaming. So thanks so much, and stick around. Otherwise, and is that another stopwatch? Who is that? Is that y'all's clock?
Not me.
Or is that on mine?
I got nothing.
Oh, my God.
Are you
purely off my internal clock?
I'm turning
he's hearing random clocks.
Yeah, he's like an alligator.
Bro, I'm turning.
If I had timers and clocks around me, like I would start to get self-conscious about the fact that I dominate the talking time, right? And I don't want that because I want to keep dominating the talking time. So
honestly,
you succeed.
Honestly, though, I gotta say, last week, whenever we were talking Average Debate Enjoyer, you said be more aggressive. I didn't think that was really an issue. This week, I definitely think that was your issue, was the not being aggressive enough.
I've been getting that a lot, man.
He thought he had two lefty judges.
I'm just happy to be here. I'm just happy to be here.
I mean, the thing about these debates,
I'm getting out of here though. It was a wonderful night.
Hey, I'll see you Monday.
As well. Been a blast.
Check
you out next time.
Hit me up, Lethe, if you need me for anything else. Have a good one, guys.
He's gone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, what were you gonna say then? Yeah, they were out. They were ready.
Yeah, right. They were ready. I'm gonna get out of here not too long afterwards, anyways, just because I don't normally stream on Fridays. But I think there's an interesting play here that I like about like the YouTube, Twitch politics thing, which is, you know, you have to recognize that everything is a balance between, you know, your ideas, your philosophy, and your entertainment, right? And like I think there are not a lot of people, like you'll see a lot of great debaters, right? That understand one and not the other, right? So I think, you know, like one of the greatest debates, I watched this debate probably, and I would say if you haven't watched it, you absolutely should watch it, like as a lover of the game, right? There is a debate between William Lane Craig, who's one of the greatest Christian apologists of his time, and Christopher Hitchens. Now, obviously, this isn't like a YouTube, Twitch, blood sports debate, right? This is more formal, closer to an Oxford-style debate. But you get to see kind of the beginning, I think, of that that understanding of playing to the crowd, as opposed to like playing to the judges purely or playing to the logic, right? Because William Lane Craig is amazing. Have you seen the debate I'm talking about?
No, I've not seen it.
You absolutely
So
should.
I will go watch it.
If you're a lover of the debate game, right? Like I think you can learn a lot from what happens.
What's the other guy, Craig?
William Lane Craig, yeah. It is like Christopher Hitchens.
Christopher Hitchens. All right. Oh yeah, that's first thing that popped up. All right, perfect. I love take a gander.
Because you can see Christopher Hitchens was like one of the first people. You saw this. It's kind of it's a resurrection, right? So back in the day, they used to do these
I have
public
seen
debates.
The Does God Exist one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I have seen that. That's a good. Yeah, that's what they made us watch.
It's a good one to like rewatch because like you
that's a good
you can see because like you can see there used to be these like magazine debates in like the 1800s, right? And you can read them and you can kind of see the same thing where they understand that they're not really debating for the judges, they're debating for the public. But like Christopher Hitchens was like resurrecting that. And, you know, obviously I'm an atheist, so I'm biased towards him to some degree, but you know, I disagree with him on a lot. But if you wanted to argue pro-imperialism and like pro-intervention in the Middle East, like Christopher Hitchens, ironically enough, is a great person to watch on that. Like the slap downs that he has where he talks about like, no, these are a barbaric fucking culture. Like it's not fucking Israel. It's not fucking, you know, Western imperialism. And he's like talking about the slave trade. He's like talking about the foundation of the Marines having to go in and start, you know, in Tripoli, you know what I mean? Like, and like the way that he just, you know, sells, you know, the concept that like, it's not fucking blowback or intervention that's causing this. It's this fucking culture.
Would have done the debate style. Yeah, I definitely would have done it differently if I'd been Tyler. I don't know which stylistic matchup would have done, but two things. Like one, you're absolutely right with the play of the crowd. That's the thing I've noticed with the panels and the whatever. So all right, I'll give you an example. Tiberius and I argued over some things, but Tiberius' biggest complaint is I think he's like a debate purist. And many times he didn't like the direction Twitch polls going. And I know that,
but I understand that's the game.
Right, yeah, I think I understand that as well. I mean, we've had conversations about it before several times, but I had the idea during the election that the reason why I got all these people to go do that cute bot show was I was like, these people are the undecided voters, right? Like, these are your average Joes. If you're really wanting to convince people, like, this is where you're going to do it. Like, you're not going to do it in the Twitch space where everybody's jacking off to their favorite views and screaming at their favorite person they hate. I feel like this is, and I said this to Prime today. I don't know if you read any of that group chat, but I was like, you know, I think that people want to.
I saw so many messages in like the DCS one too that I was just oh my god, whatever.
Primes was asking about what he like restructuring the reverie, and I just gave like a long response. But I was like, basically, you know, I was like, you know, they want to cheer for their favorite heels or their favorite like, you know, whatever in this space, right? And there's not really a pure debate space. But I wanted to like go a different direction where you want to like have the crowd be a factor. I like have different types of judges that are not just the debate bros. So, like obviously I'm leaning on the debate bros a little bit to start this out, like kind of thing. But as I go forward, I definitely want to have more people, like for example, like Wick hosted a panel on 40K, right? And I had Danny Fortuna come and join. And Danny Fortuna actually is a fantastic public speaker, great debater, but he would never want to debate anything political, right? Or like anything like that. So like, you know, you can have these people that are great debaters of other stuff. And so I wanted to like start bringing in these other factions. And I think that I like this format pretty good, I think, for that. I'm probably pretty excited. There's definitely no debate, like formal debate of any kind in the space at the moment. Like, I don't know why that is. I feel like it's a missed opportunity.
Well, it's like NPR's like IQ squared. You know, from the libertarians, we have like Gene Epstein's, you know, things of that nature. But the problem is that, you know, you have to, I mean, like debates, it's audience capture, right? It really is audience capture. And it's because the primary audience in Twitch and YouTube poll are going to be men in their 20s that are hyper focused on politics. That's your target audience, because that's who's already there, as opposed to bringing in new things. And I think a lot of people become fearful of changing things if it alienates their audience to a certain degree. And it's exacerbated, I think, a lot. And it's a big problem with like YouTube, especially, where, for example, like if I do a stream on just pure economics, right, I'm going to get low numbers. And the reason I'm going to get low numbers is because the only people that YouTube are going to send my video to are people that are not interested in economics. They're interested in the type of content that I regularly do. And so those people will tune in, see that I'm live, and they'll be like, oh, fuck, he's talking about methodological individualism. Not today. I come here for the blood sports, right? And I cater to both audiences. And so that's part of my problem in the growth of my channel. I recognize that. But I'm doing what it is that I want to do. And I'm like, I'm less fearful about, you know, the slow growth, because I'm hoping to do both at the same time. Right. And so it's like, it's exacerbated by the algorithms in that, like, if you were to do a pure, you know, IQ, if you were to do a pure Oxford style debate, in like the YouTube Twitch poll, you would get sent to people that watch blood sports, and then they would be like, this is boring. They would leave. And then the algorithm would go, oh, well, people are leaving and not watching, so this isn't one of your good pieces of content, so we're not going to suggest it to anybody else.
I that's definitely a big push. I mean, also the other thing is, you
almost need to make a new channel for it.
Yeah, that's true. The thing, like, I'm looking at as well is you mentioned like who's going to show it to. I think a big thing that is missing right now is that, like, okay, so I'll use a non-debate guy, Modi, right? Modi, one of his big complaints is that he loses. It's fine. He's like a degenerate streamer, right? One of the things that he complains about is he'll lose viewers, the e-girls, right? And I'll go on the same shows with him and he'll like complain because, oh, these guys come, they watch my channel, and then why would they ever just stay and hang out when they go to the e-girl? They're only watching my channel to find new e-girls. I don't have that problem, even though I do the shows with the same people, because one, I'm more what I would call like meat and potatoes. And I think this is kind of the meat and potatoes thing. These people can go and watch like the DGen, but then, you know, maybe the girl's not on, maybe there's whatever, and they want to see this higher like line of thought, but still be like entertained. That's why shows like that are good on Fox right now are like the Five. That's why Jon Stewart always does.
It's
really
a Venn
well.
diagram, right?
And it's like the crossover.
You need an overlap, but if you don't have enough of, if you have too much overlap, right, then you're in pure competition. And if somebody does what you're the same thing that you're doing better, which is you're a DGen streamer, right? Then like some girl doing a hot tub stream is doing what you're doing better, right?
Right.
And so it's like you have to have an overlap where you can do both, and then you can recognize that there are going to be people.
It's same
that
with the
like
politics.
both.
It's same with the politics, right? Like you have these people, like it's okay. How many times do you see people in the same show and then they just stay stagnant? It's like, okay. And this was my big complaint when this happened with I mean, it's still happening right now. And this has been my biggest complaint is during the election, when Kamala was doing good, and even in the Biden when it was close, everybody was working with everybody. But as it neared, the left still controls a lot of the Twitch poll space, and it was very few lefties were willing to interact with the righties. And now that like it's kind of gone like one way, a big portion of the biggest lefties have like closed up like a clam. And it's like, well, the good news is there's now areas of opportunity for everybody else. But the bad news is now it's harder to get your message out there. So it's kind of like it's another like, I don't know where that would go to the Venn diagram, but it's like another little like, what's the word I'm looking for? Factor that one should like has to factor in. I had to use that twice in a row there, but like, you know, if you don't like variable, there's the word I was looking for, that you have to factor in. And if you don't like factor all these different variables in, then like you're working against yourself. Like I don't know. It's just
so the confounding variable there is that the left understands that they win if they get voter turnout, right? So it's
Right.
more incumbent upon the left to enrage and or excite their base than it is upon the right, right? Because the right is, if the right has someone, then they're going to show up and vote. Whereas what the right really needs to do is they need to get people in the middle. Whereas with the left can have someone, but they don't show up to vote. Right. And so I think that's one of many factors that is causing the left to kind of spiral, is that they end up being pushed into echo chambers in places like that, partly because they have to constantly enrage their base.
Yeah.
And then they have this constant purity test that they have to pass. I mean, look at Cenk Uygur, right?
I think
by
that's the
being
problem on the right, though. We don't purity test enough. There's got to be this happy line, and this is kind of why I went to war with like Connor, and this is why I was even kind of like coming against like Tiberius, is that like I know you said you're an atheist, but I think the Bible, is useful for a lot of things, and one of them it talks about Revelations is these false prophets coming, and they're going to appear to be one thing, and they're going to lead people astray, and I find that allegory very relevant, like especially during election season. There's all sorts of like political actors that are acting like there's something. And then they push for an agenda that's the opposite of what they say they are while doing this. And I think that's a concern. And the right, however, doesn't seem to be willing to like, no, that guy's not one of us. Like, and not enough, at least, I don't think. Like, and like versus the left is like over the top of that.
Yeah, I mean, like you have to strike a balance. The problem is that the right has a unique problem in the way, at least not recently. Okay, let's take out the last 5 to 10 years, and then let's look at the right from the 1920s up until like 2015. During that entire period, the right had a unique challenge, which is that culture and society kept pushing to the left, right? And so if you gatekeep your own for purity's sake, you lose elections. Right, because it was in order for the right to win elections, they had to keep moving ever so slightly to the left, and so they kind of lost that fight. Ever since I don't know. Like I guess you could start it with Jekyll Island, right? Like you could start it with the foundation of the Federal Reserve, right, where there's been a constant push to be less capitalist, less culturally Christian conservative, and every step of the way they kind of had to just like accept that, right? I mean, like look at Obama was pro maintaining civil unions and against gay marriage even in his second term, right? Trump came in and was like, yeah, let the gays get married. Right now, is that good or is that bad? I'm not making that claim as of right now. I think it's bad. But I think it's bad not because I don't think gay dudes should be able to go fucking sign a contract. I think it's bad that we give special rights and privileges to married people, and that the state's involved in marriage, and that the state's involved in like predominantly protecting women in marriage and in corporate. Like, I just think the state should get out of it completely. Like, I'm sorry, you don't get a Fifth Amendment right to self-incrimination because you're married to someone else. You know what I mean? Like, that's retarded. And like hospitals should be able to choose whether or not they let a fucking gay dude visit his husband or not. That should be a hospital decision, not a government decision. Like, there just shouldn't be tax incentives and privileges for marriage. And then we wouldn't have had this problem to begin with. But nevertheless, like, the right consistently moved to the left. And I think we're finally seeing the breaking point, right? Where Gen Z, the conservatives throughout the last 100 years have been like crabs boiling in a pot, where we've kind of gotten more and more left wing over and over and over again. But the problem is for the left's indoctrination is that like you have to start that process over again when new kids go into school. And when they really, really started focusing on leftist bullshit in elementary and middle schools, they thought, oh, well, we got them young enough so it won't matter. And it's like, actually, it turns out that if you just force feed them leftist propaganda, some percentage of like the white boys go, what the fuck is this? And they're not
Yeah, that's
they're
a
not
big
crabs boiling in a pot. You know what I mean? They're just angry young men that don't want all this hatred and socialism and failed economy and inability to get a girlfriend because of feminist bullshit.
I
etc.
definitely agree with like the rubber band kind of theory where it stats backwards. Like it's because they almost like backfired. It's like they made because there's always counterculture and counterculture is always cool, right? It's like we've made this the culture, and now like being the opposite is like the cool thing. Like for like I know a guy right now. He just turned like I think 19, and when he turned 18, he started an OnlyFans. And like I'm like, okay, maybe kind of weird. This is kind of weird that I'm thinking he uses concern, but this guy doesn't go on dates. He's like, I'm not gonna get married. Like, you know, I want to save my money. I don't like, you know, if I do get married, I want like, a traditional woman, yada yada. And it's like this guy's like one of these like cool kid. Like he's like definitely like all the people follow him. He's got like 6 million people on TikTok. You know, like 2% body fat walking around. Like okay, and like this guy's pushing. Like not quite a red pill, but like very like along this lines of like we need to go back to something else because what's working now is terrible.
It's very interesting to see Gen Z because like Gen Z is, especially the young men, are like more conservative even than like your typical millennial, and yet they often have like these weird, very degenerate, very leftist social opinions in these little boxes. And it's like I don't know that I put my finger like or my thumb, you know, on the button or, you know, whatever the right analogy is. I can't think of it right now, but I don't know why. I don't know.
Oh, I'll tell you why. It's because the social media. It's the social media is like, okay, this is something that someone explained to me the other day. I didn't think I was talking to this girl that was staying here for a bit, and she was like, she's like, I was an iPad kid. I watch YouTube and I watch streams all the time. And I'm like, why? She's like, because it's free. You don't have to pay for cable. You don't have to pay. You have to pay for cable. You have to pay for Netflix. You have to pay for this. But I can turn on any stream in the world and I can watch it for free. So all these kids have grown up and with the streaming. And so what's good for streaming? Being good looking, like going and having somewhat of a DJ and a little bit of a lifestyle. However, then you can have all your opinions. And so it's like this is the lifestyle that's enabled these people that are there, influencers for lack of a better term, to make money. They're like that's like their Britney Spears. That's their whatever. Like Kai Cenat is as big as like Britney Spears ever was, right? Like, you know, and that's how they're influencing as opposed to like when we were growing up, you know, you have celebrities, which like now, like I don't even know who I'd call a celebrity in the like you would call social media big social media star celebrities now at this point. Like I think like Mr. Beast, he's got to be as big as Ariana Grande, you know, like if not bigger. Like
yeah. Well, so I do wonder, right, if there is a natural swing to obviously YouTube isn't purely meritocratic because there's censorship.
Sure,
right?
yeah.
But I do wonder if there's like less influence on, you know, what propaganda individuals are wanting to sell because there is a kind of like our natural tendency. So like, let me reverse, right? When we look at like the problem with dating today with young men and like incels, if for lack of a better term.
Yeah, it's the internet culture. It's fucked up.
Right. Well, there's a lot of factors, right? You know, some of it is that they don't have good male role models because they're fucking raised by a single mom, right? Some of it is, you know, hatred towards men has become common. You know, some of it though, right? And kind of what I'm focusing on here is the natural tendency for hypergamy that exists within our species is freed by dating apps and by social media, right? Like, you know, it used to be 100 years ago, there were 200 available girls in your town and you weren't likely to marry someone out of your town, right? And so the natural pairing, even without the coercive element of the parental involvement, right? Even not accounting for that, you're still in a situation where, you know, your available market is very limited, right? And so, and of course there's social pressure to settle down then that doesn't exist now, right? Which is another big part of it, right? I mean, you go back 100 years ago, people dated to marry. They didn't date to fuck. Like, I mean, like it did happen obviously, but for the most part, if you were dating someone, it was like, I'm courting this person, right?
Well, I think another big factor is this, and this is a working theory that I've developed based off my interactions at like social media events and Twitch cons and Dream Hacks and all these other things. Is like used to if you went to like like Comic-Con or Comic-Palooza or something, like they were nerds and they were like cool and they were like the little culture. Now, and they had their own set of problems. Now though, the thing with like streaming is allowed people that are somewhat socially awkward or like on the spectrum or any variety of different reasons to be able to form these communities. And I think that's why we've even seen this like Me Too movement push back, because sometimes these people do stuff and they'll get away with it and they keep doing it and they get deep too, because there's not like a real celebrity where if you do something there's like a visceral reaction like immediately, right? Like here, like even at that level. But it's also like these people, they only have internet friends. They'll go to school and then they'll like come home and they live on the internet. And so you see this more like
for everything, right?
Yeah, there's a community for everything.
You know, like 100 years ago, if you were a fucking furry, you didn't go find a furry community. You were a weirdo, and if you wanted any ability to succeed in life, you had to fucking hide that shit and either push that shit down and just go be fucking normal, right? Or you had to keep it behind closed doors. But now behind closed doors is an entire online community that you can go meet other people and tell you that there's nothing wrong with you and you're perfectly cool and like you're not a crazy person. And so like the social pressures are actually so weakened by social media in a way, because you can always find a group of like-minded people no matter what your thing is.
And in addition to that, like, you know, say you had beef with somebody, right, back in the day, like you'd meet up, fight each other, go to Whataburger, or you'd kill each other, whatever, you know, and it'd be over. But like now, people will have beef, they'll have beef for months, and then within these communities, they'll do like what they're like, you know, cancel culture. They'll cancel somebody in their community, and that person will just move to another community with like almost zero repercussion, and like they either like, you know, become depressed. And they like move from community to community, and then they can't develop any societal norms. And like, I think all of this is like, dude, I'm less concerned than some.
Yeah, like look at like Daniel Dobrik, right?
Yeah, I think
like that dude filmed an underage girl getting like fed alcohol and raped by one of his buddies, and then almost killed another one of his friends, and then like did like a you know, like a little hiatus and got fit. And everyone's like, who's this new fit funny guy? And it's like, fucking, did we forget? And they were like, yes, we forgot. We don't care. And there's like, you know, it's like, it's wild.
Yeah, like, and it's just kind of like, I think this, I'm not super worried about this long term though. I think it's kind of like, for example, like my parents, they're like, they asked me the other day, they're like, how do you know what's real? And that was a scary question to me. Like, I can look at a photo and be like, that's AI. I can look at like a news story and be like, I'm going to need to see the other side. You know, I'm going to need to see some other facts. Like, but they'll just accept things, right? But like, as they get older and die off, you know, that's going to be less of a problem. But then it's like, even the younger generations, they're like, you know, pretty, you know, they're used to internet culture. They can tell, you know, and that's a problem. I think with this is the same thing. Is I think there's just like this like learning period when like new technology is invented, and then it'll just move past it.
Jonathan Haidt, who's a moral psychologist, who worked, he developed like the 5 value system of moral psychology of like the left and the right. He's done a lot of good work in moral psychology, and he worked with the FIRE organization to like help young men in college campuses that were colleges that were using like Title IX as a means to prosecute like rape allegations instead of the police. Like, and go after like people that were accused of rape and stuff like that. And FIRE is a great organization for fighting back against that. But he talked about it, and he said that the social media is much like junk food in the way, like, well, obviously it's like candy for your brain, but also that like when junk food first hit the market, people didn't know how to react to it, and they just kind of treated it like food. And we're starting to see today that we're turning around on that a lot of people are realizing like, in moderation, maybe it's okay, but like, you know, this shit is horrible for you, etc. And it's like, it takes the first generation that gets, you know, that gets hit by these new products really never gets it. But it's the generation that comes in that as they're growing up, they see the damages of the product. They come in and they kind of get it, right? So like millennials, for example, are the worst when it comes to social media. They think Gen Z are worse. They're not. But Gen Alpha and Gen Z, they already know that social media is toxic. They know that Instagram's not real. They understand that like these people are like that all these videos are staged, kind of like what you're talking about, right?
Right.
And it's like because it's like they're coming into a world of junk food, right? And they see the junk food for what it is, but like the first adopters kind of never get it. So in a way, it is a generational thing, and I think hopefully we'll turn around on that. But who knows? Because AI is about to be the new social media, the new junk food.
Yeah, AI is gonna be something. But on that note, this is a good note. I'm gonna get into some gaming. Baby, it's been good. Congratulations on winning. We'll
Thank you
catch
as
you
well.
soon.
Appreciate it.
I'll mention when everything's ready for the next thing. All right, my boy, you be good.
Peace. All right. Let's get this camera rolling. I didn't know the format of the debate. That's not what I was trying to do. I didn't know the format of the debate. Actually, let me lock that while I'm here. So I didn't know like how long this would be, but this isn't my normal streaming night. So, 2.5 hours later, I'm pretty much ready to hop out of here. Let me get some outro music for you guys. You know what I'm saying? Like some outro music that'll get copyrighted, and then that'll get copyrighted, and then after it gets copyrighted, it'll go through review, and then it'll stay in limited ad availability, despite the fact that I didn't do anything fucking wrong. But yeah, I will be back Sunday for Sunday Fun Day. Dude, I'm not giving you fucking mod. It's not happening, Slope of Soap. I'll be back Sunday for Sunday Fun Day. We'll probably play some Path of Exile, just hang out, chit chat, see what happens, and then get back to the regular programming. I really want to do the Libertarian Nerd Night and go through that Stephen Kinsella video once I get things up and going. But like, share, subscribe. Consider becoming a member for only $3.99. Super chats always get read. But if you want to get in contact with me more, or if you're like Slope is Open, you really want to be a moderator, it's not going to happen for him. You can always join the Discord and be a part of the community and see what happens. Follow me on Twitter. Join the Discord. Love you guys. I'm kind of tired too. It is just 4:30 here. Jesus Christ, brother. Gave him 5 minutes. What? Oh, I'm not sure. But regardless, I'll see you guys on Twitter. I'll see you guys on the Discord, and I will see you guys Sunday. I'm happy to dominate another debate here. I need better opponents. You guys see if you can find me better opponents. If you know anybody, let me know. But otherwise, peace.